Hello, hello, hello. This is Attorney Mike Evan coming to you from Chicago. As usual, I was out and about and I just got a whole bunch of requests for this hearing and I came back. So I want to get it going. I don't know anything about it, but I've heard, I got a ton of messages. It's a hot hearing in front of Judge Simpson. I want to thank Zach FL for giving me information on it. Let's get it started, shall we?
Teenagers report from County of Washington, State of Michigan is now back in session. The Honorable Judge J. Second Simpson presiding.
Roger, you got your matter taken care of.
I did, thank you very much.
All right,
And to circuit court, got the plea done.
all right, very good.
I don't know how well this will go. I might have to bust into the White Claws.
Court does call the case of People State of Michigan versus Raymond Smith. Counsel, state your appearances.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Amy Riser on behalf of.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Attorney John Freeman on behalf of Mr. Smith, who is seated at counsel.
All right, very good. Taking time set for preliminary examination. Are we ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Jesse England.
Please come forward and be sworn.
Take a seat, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so be done.
Yes.
I do what I can, Angel.
State your first and last name for the record.
JESSE-ENG.
All right. You may inquire.
Thank you, Jesse. My name is Amy Riser, and we've met a couple times now. I have a series of questions to ask you. If there's anything that you don't understand, just let me know and I can repeat the question. The microphone before you will record what you're saying, but it won't actually amplify your voice. So we do need you, one, to keep your voice up so we can hear. Some of us are old and can't hear. And also, I think sometimes we get nervous and we might shake our head yes or no, but we do need a verbal response because from the recording, they'll type a transcript of the proceeding. And I don't know if that screen in front of you is on. Is it on, off? Yes, it's on. Okay, is it distracting? Is it okay to have it on, or do you want us to shut it off? Okay. All right. And so if you need to take a break at any time, let me know, and we can take a break, or if you need a glass of water. And when I'm done asking you questions, Mr. Freeman will ask you a series of questions and same rules apply. Okay? Can you tell Judge Simpson how old you are? 40 years old. Okay. And where do you currently live? Michigan. Okay. And I want to take you back to September of 2023. Where were you living then? It's Landing, Michigan. Okay. And what address? 1591 Wingate Boulevard. It's Landing, Michigan. And that's in Washtenaw County? Yes. Thank you. And how long had you lived in September of 2023? How long had you lived at that address? A couple of years at that point. Okay. And who did you live there with? My mom. Okay. And what's her name? Kathy Baptist.
Say Baptist.
Baptist, like the church.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And do you know the defendant in this case, Raymond Smith? I do. And how do you know him? He was a neighbor, lived across the street, kind of kitty corner. Okay. And what was your relationship with him when you lived at Wingate? He was a neighbor, acquaintance, friend. Okay. And on September 21st, 2023, did you go to his residence? Yeah. Okay. And why did you go there? Smoking. Okay. And is that something that you had done with him in the past?
Yes.
Okay. And did you have a romantic relationship with him?
No.
Okay. And did he want a romantic relationship with you?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you know that?
He was insistent. He was very inappropriate at times. I kind of just shrugged it off, but he said things that, he said things that were inappropriate.
Okay. And did you ever,
That he said things that were inappropriate.
and did you ever do work for him or do any work for him?
Yes.
And what would you do?
Clean his house.
Okay. And he would pay you for that?
Yes.
And how often would you do that?
I did it twice.
Oh, 2 or 3 times? Okay. And so on the 21st, 2023, you went to smoke marijuana. How did that come about? Was it a phone call, a text? Did he walk to your house or something else?
He texted me.
Okay.
Asking me if I wanted to come over.
Okay. And what was your initial response?
I think I said yes.
Okay.
But I didn't go. I kind of blew him off.
Okay.
And then he texted me again. And it was the same day. I told him that I was doing something. And this went on for a few hours.
Okay. And
Thank
do
you to
recall
Andrew
how
from
many
Iowa,
times he texted you?
who provided me with this fine white claw.
Okay.
What do you call him that?
Okay. And did you ultimately go over there?
Yes.
And do you recall what time you went over?
8 o'clock, around 8 o'clock.
PM?
Yes.
Okay. And that was on September 20th or 21st? Do you recall the day or what day of the week it was?
I don't remember exactly.
Thursday, September 21st, 2023 was a Thursday. Do you recall what day of the week it was, or do you know? Okay, or no, I'm sorry, do you recall what day of the week you went over there?
No.
Okay, so what happened when you ultimately went over there?
I went over there and he had a long pack of marijuana and I started smoking.
Okay, and was he smoking too? Okay. And what's the next thing that you remember happening?
Being naked.
Okay, okay. And do you recall how you got naked? Okay, and what was happening?
He was sweating on me and he was pulling my wrist. And I told him no.
Okay, and did he say
Oh,
anything
good
to
Lord.
you?
I don't think-
This is interesting,
Not
but
at that point, I don't really.
it's ugly.
Okay, and what was he
Behave.
doing?
He was penetrating me with his penis.
Okay, and you said no?
I said,
Do you recall how many times you said no?
like, many times.
Okay, okay. And what do you remember happening next?
I kind of blacked back out and I woke up again on my stomach. And he was penetrating my vagina and my anus with sex toys.
Okay. And did you see the sex toy? Did you feel it or both?
I felt them. I did see them later on. I remember getting glances. But I remember feeling that.
Okay. And did you say anything to him?
Yeah, I said, stop. He asked me if I liked it. I said, no, stop.
And what happened next?
I couldn't
Do you need a second?
I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't understand why I trusted him, even though he creeped me out, I trusted him. But I fell back asleep, blacked back out, and I woke back up, and he was pulling me back down with this by my wrist. And I said no again. The next thing I remember is trying to get my clothes. He grabbed me and asked if I wanted to cuddle with him. And I got so angry that I was scared, and I asked if he was crazy, and I left.
And you said you asked him if he was crazy? And why did you ask him that?
He just raped me, and he wanted to cuddle. He knew I didn't want to sleep with him. He knew that. He knew that for a long time.
Had you had conversations about that previously? Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And you told him what?
That I wasn't interested in him. I wasn't interested. That I was either in relationships, and then it was like as soon as I got out of them, he would come over all the time. My mom had to lie to him when I was in my room. She had to say I was gone. He just wouldn't leave me alone. And I told him, I don't want to be with you. I don't want to sleep with you.
And so you said, are you crazy? Did he respond to that? Do you recall? Okay. And what happened next? What do you remember happening next?
I walked out his house. It was hard for me to walk. And I kind of remember walking outside and going home. And the next morning, telling my mom.
Do you remember what time you got home?
I know it had to have been around 11 o'clock,
AM?
PM.
Okay.
Probably out.
Okay. And did you ultimately seek medical attention? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. The next morning, I told my mother what happened, and she said it was best that we go to the hospital. So, yeah, and I don't even remember if I called or hospital called the police. They came.
The police came to the hospital. Okay. And so, and that's when you met Deputy Campanori?
Yes.
Okay. And so if the police report indicates that they came to the hospital on the 21st, on September 21st, 2023, is it your testimony that you were at Raymond's house the night before on September 20th, 23? Okay. And the individual that you stated as Raymond Smith who did these things to you, do you see him in the courtroom today? And can you tell Judge Simpson where he is and what he's wearing?
Yes, so it's maybe blue.
The record could reflect she's identified the defendant.
Record shows so reflective that objection.
And were you treated by a sexual assault nurse at the hospital? Okay. And did you sustain any injury as a result of the sexual assault? Did you have any injury?
Yes, I had some bruises, my wrist, was injured. And I was very, very sore. And I had to have surgery for prolapse. Rectal prolapse.
Rectal prolapse. I don't have any other questions for you this time. Mr. Freeman may have some questions for you, okay? Thank you.
Cross-examination.
When did you have the surgery?
I haven't had it yet.
Oh, you haven't had it. I thought you just said that you did have surgery.
So I have to,
You have to have it. Okay.
I have to do physical therapy. Pelvic floor, physical therapy,
Because what?
because I got raped.
So these events took place more than a year ago, correct? And you said you haven't had that treatment yet?
They can't give me a minute. Excruciating.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. Do you have any conditions that affect your memory?
It's a public
Sorry?
hearing.
Do you have any conditions that affect your memory?
He doesn't really have a
Not
choice.
like that. No,
What conditions do you have that might affect your memory? You don't have to look at the prosecutor or anybody over there. You can look at me.
You can have her just answer the question, counsel.
I don't have any.
You have lupus, don't you?
I have lupus, but that doesn't affect my memory. That wouldn't affect me remembering a sexual assault.
Fair to say that one of the conditions, one of the symptoms of your lupus from time to time is that it impacts your memory.
It can.
Fair to say?
It can.
So it could have an impact on your memory. That's fair to say, isn't it?
It can.
Okay. Any other conditions that affect your memory?
Systemic lupus. I have depression. That's about it.
You chronically use drugs, don't you?
No. I did. I don't. I do not. I used to.
You used to use drugs a lot, fair to say?
Yeah.
You used to use drugs a lot back in September of 2023, didn't you?
I didn't.
Did you use drugs other than marijuana back in September of 2023?
Base cocaine.
Fair amount of cocaine, correct? Other drugs too? If the medical records that we have from in connection with this case say that a couple weeks earlier you were positive for, let's say, cocaine, those wouldn't be wrong, would they?
I just said I did cocaine.
Well, let's talk about the other drugs that you used to do in September of 2023. How about amphetamines? You ever used opiates?
Yes.
You've almost died from opiate use, correct?
Yes.
That would affect your memory as well, correct?
Yes.
How about alcohol? You ever attend AA meetings?
Of course. Yeah. For my drug use.
You ever excessively consume alcohol and be considered an alcoholic?
Considered an alcoholic because I suffer from the disease of alcoholism, which is all encompassing.
How about benzodiazepines? Do you know what those are?
I know what they are. There's Xanax, Klonopin, Ativan. I know what they are.
Have you ever been diagnosed with having withdrawals from benzodiazepines?
I have.
Benzodiazepines affect your memory as well, correct?
Yes, they do.
Have you also been diagnosed with the opiate use disorder, severe in early remission?
Remission, keyword.
In early remission? Do you remember ever being diagnosed like that? So it's more than just lupus that's part of your life that affects your memory. Isn't that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, at the time that you were at the hospital and you were examined by an orthopedic surgeon, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember telling the orthopedic surgeon that you couldn't remember the details of the assault?
Yes.
So if it was indicated that you do not recall the assault, that would be a fair statement of what you told the orthopedic surgeon at the hospital the next day. You don't remember that? Your Honor, may I approach?
Her statement,
I'm trying to refresh her recollection.
is it gonna refresh her recollection?
I don't
You
know.
didn't ask her.
If I were to show you medical records that indicate that you reported you were sexually assaulted last night and you do not recall the assault, Would that refresh your recollection as to what you told the medical personnel?
I don't remember all the details. I don't.
Okay. You've also, what drugs have you done with Mr. Smith in the past?
We did true.
What was the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
What drugs have they done with the defendant in the past?
We've done heroin.
You in fact had in the past have asked him to provide you with cocaine, is that fair to say?
I asked if he did it, yeah.
So I want to, you characterize your prior interactions with Mr. Smith, or when asked what was the nature of the relationship, you stated that you were neighbors, acquaintances, and friends, correct? So I want to explore a little bit the nature of that friendship. When did you first meet Ray Smith?
Maybe it was. I'm not quite sure. It was when I first moved to my mom's. So
About when was that?
20, I don't know for sure, 2020. Maybe?
And is it fair to say that over the years between 2020 and September of 2023, you guys would spend time together on and off? Fair to say?
More like he would give me rides sometimes and we smoked weed together. He came over, hung out with my mom, provided her with marijuana, smoked weed with her.
And
Didn't spend time together.
well, did you spend time together around Christmas in 2021?
There was a neighborhood Christmas party.
Well, I'm asking you specifically, did you spend time with each other, say Christmas Eve 2021?
I don't remember. I can't remember that part.
During the time period that you knew Mr. Smith, you were using a cell phone, correct? You had a cell phone? Is that number 517-449-4209? And you also go by the name Jesse Baptiste?
Never got that.
That's your mom's name? Your Honor, may I approach with some documents? There are text messages between the complainant and my client.
You can show it to the prosecutor as to what you're approaching with, maybe.
Just for the record, I don't have them.
Your Honor, for the record, these have been tendered to the prosecutor's office months ago during the back and forth about discovery in this case.
Are you asking if she recalls something or why approaching with these? I didn't hear the first part of that.
Fresh.
Did she forget something? I'm sorry, what was the question that she?
I was asking questions, Your Honor, regarding Christmas of 2021.
I know. So why, I mean, it's interesting, what do those have to do with it?
Well, there's been certain representations made about the nature of the relationship, the friendship between the complainant and my client. And believe I'm allowed a little latitude in exploring that. She made very specific statements
Well, you're asking to approach with,
in order to
do what?
to refresh her recollection on whether or not they spent time together Christmas 2021.
Well, I don't think it's relevant, first of all, with 2021.
And as a proffer, so you're approaching with something, I don't know if those are hers or not. You asked whether she went by a certain name. She has said she did not go by that name.
She indicated that she went by a certain phone number. And I think that if
That was her phone number, but then you asked if she went by a certain name and she said no.
right, but if she looks at these text messages, she's, I suspect, going to remember very specific text messages that are contained in the back and forth between her and my client.
All right. Ms. Reiser, you received a copy of those?
No, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find them. When did you send them to?
When were those tendered to the prosecutor?
Months ago.
Well,
I don't have a
you-
specific date. I can look that up easily enough.
Well, let's look it up. You did? Okay. So they were tendered to you. All right. Go ahead, Counsel. She says she has them. I don't need you to keep talking. Let's just get to it.
Well, Your Honor, I just don't like the implication that I didn't provide it. It was provided.
Counsel, all I asked is, did you provide it? You said yes. I asked Ms. Reiser. Said no. Then you went off on your tangent. She says she has them. I'm done. Question.
Thank you. Ms. England, do you remember spending time with Ray Smith around Christmas of 2021?
I remember going to a Christmas party for Ray. I don't remember that.
Well, let's talk about back around the time that you first met Ray Smith. Is it fair to say that that was in September of 2021?
Yes. Sure. I would really remember. And yeah, important.
You remember discussing with him going out to dinner back in September of 2021?
He asked me to dinner and I blew him off, just like I did every other time. I blew him off.
Well, would you consider blowing him off if you said, I like Mexican food restaurant on Michigan Avenue, to be honest, LOL. I always like Casablanca a lot on Washtenaw, but I think they close. Next Friday, I get out of work early because I have a hair appointment at 1:30 by Lululemon across from Whole Foods. Not sure what time you're available, but maybe we can grab a late lunch or early dinner.
What did the rest of the text say, sir?
Your Honor, may I now approach?
Yes.
So let's start at the back and then work towards the front. So right now, I'm looking at September 16th, 2021 at 8:05 and 46 seconds PM. It's on the second to the last page. So let's go back to that.
Fabulous, good. And then he asked me if I wanted to go kayaking. I told him how weekends are tricky. Again, blowing him off.
So let's go
I
specifically,
didn't spend time with Rick.
let's go,
and his story.
let's go specifically to September 16th, 2021 at 8:05 PM and 46 seconds on the second to the last page. The third entry from the top. Can you go to that spot, please?
What page?
The second to the last page.
Okay.
Do you see the third entry down where it says received September 16th, 2020? Let me finish asking the question and then you can respond, okay? So do you see where it says September 16, 2021, 8:05 and 46 seconds? And then the next entry starts, I like the Mexican food. Do you see that? Okay, now this is you to him, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you say at the end of that, maybe we can grab a late lunch or early dinner? Did I read that correct? Did I read that correctly?
Oh, sorry.
Did I read that correctly? Where you said,
I
maybe,
just meant-
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that the witness be instructed to let me finish the question before she starts to answer, and that she answer the question that's being asked.
Go ahead with your question, Phil.
Miss England, did I read the last part of that text message correctly? Where you wrote, quote, maybe we can grab a late lunch or early dinner. Is that what you wrote?
Oh, that's what I wrote, yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't mean.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that she be instructed not to volunteer information above and beyond the yes or no that the question calls for.
Next question.
Going now to the next page, the third entry from the bottom, September 23, 2021 at 10:56 and 53 seconds. Can you go to that entry, please?
Oh, which one?
Your Honor, may I approach to point it out to her?
Ray,
I'll find it.
are you able to keep up, Ms. Reiser? What?
It's the star
Oh, thank you.
next to the one I'm going to read with you.
I appreciate it.
So this is a text message that you sent to Ray, correct?
Mhm.
September 23rd, 2021, 10:56 and 53 seconds. You wrote, hi, thank you for the birthday wish. Sorry, I'm just now getting back to you. Did I read that sentence correctly?
Yeah.
It goes on to state, I really respect you and think you are an awesome person, but I'm still living with Chad and just don't need nor want any complications right now. Did I read that correctly? You have to,
Yes.
I would love to talk to you more, but I think it'd be better if we did it as friends. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
You said, I hope that's okay, and I hope you know it has nothing to do with you because you truly are amazing.
Yes.
Did I read that correctly?
Yes. But that's just really trying to understand not hurt his feelings.
So, Miss England, is there something about my questions that you don't understand?
I'm sorry.
So I asked you if I read it correctly. That calls for a yes or a no. Do you understand that? Do you understand that my questions call for a yes or a no?
You can continue. Yes, I understand.
So can we have an agreement that if I ask a question that calls for a yes or a no, that you will then answer it yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. You've told Mr. Smith in the past that you like him. Is that fair to say?
As a friend, yes,
And you've texted things like that to him in the past before, correct?
as a friend, yes,
You've told him on more than one occasion that you think he's awesome. Is that correct?
yes.
Have you also told him that you care about him?
His dad had just died, yes.
Have you said to him, it's always good to see you?
Yes.
And one time you're so friendly that you actually gave him a condom in front of your mom. Is that fair to say?
He was on Tinder and he was asking. Yes, I did. Yes.
And you would confide in him about difficult situations that you had with your mom.
Sometimes because they were close.
And there were times where he would offer for you to come over to his house so that you could sort of get away from the situation with your mom.
I always said no.
Well, you've been over at his house. This incident that you were referring to in September of 2023, that wasn't the first time you were at his house, was it? You were over there socially on several occasions before that, fair to say?
Yes.
You were over there several times in September of 2022, weren't you?
You're telling me.
Do you remember a time where a massage was involved?
No, I don't. I remember him trying. I remember him trying.
How many times did you use mushrooms with Mr. Smith?
I think it was once.
You remember when? No? When did you first start talking about cleaning his place?
I don't remember.
Would you send text messages back and forth about cleaning his place? You have to,
Yes,
and would that have been in 2022 in September?
probably, more than likely.
And there were times when he would give you rides at your request, correct?
Yeah.
About how many times did he do that?
I don't.
Yeah.
I have no idea. A few,
When you say a few, how many does that mean in your mind?
3 or 4.
It was substantially more than that, wasn't it?
I don't know. I can't. I'm kind of stressed out right now. I don't know.
But do you need to take a break?
That would be great.
Okay.
You need a break, man. 15 minutes, will that work for you? All right, thank you. We're standing in recess, we'll reconvene at 2:55. Yeah.
All right. The 14A District Court for the County of Washington is now back in session. The Honorable Judge Simpson presiding.
Ma'am, if you can come back up and take the stand, you may be seated. The witness, counsel is present, the witness is on the stand, ma'am. I just remind you that you're still under oath, all right? May continue.
So earlier, I think you testified that you went to the hospital on September 21st, 2023. Is that right?
I don't. Yes. Yes.
And the police met you there? But you're not aware of how the police were called to be there? Is that your testimony?
I believe I called them. I can't remember exactly. I was very upset, so I can't remember exactly if I called them.
So, well, this is kind of an important detail. So did you actually call the police yourself?
I wanted them there. I wanted them there. So if I didn't do it, I told someone else to.
Okay, so my question is, did you personally call the police?
More than likely. Yes, more than likely.
So is it more of a fair statement that you're not sure if you called the police?
I can't say it's.
So it's either I called the police, I didn't call the police, I don't remember calling the police.
I just said that I can't remember exactly who called, but I wanted somebody to call it. It was more than likely he called the police, but I can't tell you exactly.
Well, I don't want you to fill in the gaps if you don't remember, okay? So as you sit here today, did you call the police?
Objection, Your Honor. Yes.
Sustained.
The police did arrive at the hospital, correct? And you told them when they first got there, when you were describing your contact with Ray Smith, that you would avoid him like the plague. Do you remember saying that?
Again, it was a long time ago, and I was very upset.
So if you ever told the police that you avoided Ray like the plague, that was not true, was it?
I did avoid Ray, especially towards the end.
Well-
When it was more towards the time that he hurt me, I did avoid him. He just would show up at my place.
Well, we're going to get into that, but it's not really a fair statement to say that you would avoid him like the plague, is it? I'm sorry? You think it is a fair statement to say that?
No, it's not a fair statement.
Okay. Because we can agree that back in September of 2022, you guys actually hung out together and went out and did some activities together. Is that fair to say?
Activities.
Yeah. Well, did you ever in response to him where you said, "Hey, I had fun last night. I hope you did too." Did you say, "Me too. My knee is fucked today though, LOL," in September of 2022?
Yeah, I felt like deer stand. It had nothing to do with hanging out with Ray. I didn't hurt my knee at Ray's.
Okay. But you had spent time with him referring to the September 5th, 2022. Is that fair to say?
Again, we spoke there more. I would go over there and spend, 20 minutes there, smoke. Just like he would come over and smoke with my mother.
And there were times where you would quote unquote hang out. Is that fair to say?
That's what that is.
That's what that means to you? Okay. So he first started giving you rides in June of 2022. Is that a fair statement?
For sure. Again, it was a month and
Well, you're saying that this event occurred September 20th, 2023. Is it fair to say that he started giving you rides about a year, at least a year before that?
sir, I don't want to give you wrong information and say yes. I don't know for sure.
You understand the importance of being accurate here today, correct? You do understand the importance of being accurate here today? So I do want to come back to something that you said earlier. Is it your testimony that you suffered an injury to your rectum as a result of what you're claiming was an assault?
It was already damaged. And what he did made it a lot worse, needing surgery.
Okay. And you were examined by,
A physician
An-
at the University of Michigan.
so my question to you is, you were examined by a nurse at the hospital on September 21st, 2023, correct?
Yes.
Why did you ask Ray to give you rides?
Because it was easy. My mom was, when she wasn't available, he was right there. He was right next door.
And why did you need rides?
Because I don't have a car.
Well, you didn't have a valid license, did you?
No
Why is that?
license.
Why not?
I lost it.
Because of your drunk drivings, right?
Objection, Your Honor, to relevancy.
What's the relevance of this?
I can tie it up, Your Honor.
Well, tie it up to what?
To some motive for what's being stated here. If I can just ask,
Driving's gonna lead to motive?
if I can ask a different question.
Go ahead.
So at the time that this all happened, as you claim it did, you were on probation, weren't you?
No,
You weren't?
no,
You weren't testing regularly for drugs and alcohol as a result of a court order? So from December of 2022 through March of 2023, there was no contact between you and Ray Smith, was there?
I'm sorry.
Between December 2022 and March 2023, there was no contact between you and Ray Smith, was there?
Asking me things, I don't remember because Ray has no, he doesn't take a, it doesn't matter to me. Like, why would I remember that?
Do you have those text messages there?
Just because there's no text doesn't mean he didn't come over and,
In December of 2022, Ray was upset with you and your mother, wasn't he?
oh, yes, he was.
What was he upset about?
Yeah,
When you say we, who do you mean?
my mom.
And how did, and Ray was unhappy with the way that he was being treated by you and your mom. Is that fair to say?
Quite sure.
Well, this all took, there was a major blowout between you and your mom in and around December of 2022, correct?
Yes, there was.
So between December of 2022 and March of 2023, there's really no communication between you and Ray. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
And then in March of 2023, you actually initiate communication with Ray.
I. Yes, it's text. Whoever might have come over, I don't know.
Let's see if we can refresh your memory.
Okay. It's-
May I approach you?
You may.
here, that at the top of these, it shows a series of text messages on December 7th, 2022. I'm gonna ask you to look at that, these text messages there.
And I guess I'm gonna object to the line of questioning because counsel seems to sort of want to pick and choose what's coming out of the text messages. I have no objection to the entire thread of messages as a statement made by the defendant, coming into evidence for the court to review, but sort of like picking and choosing and sort of taking them out of context and not, and what she would have said, what this witness would have said in those text messages is hearsay. And he certainly can't introduce his own client's statement. And I think they're not relevant. And what is troubling to me is he's creating a record of sort of bits and pieces that is not the full extent of these text messages. These text messages are her telling him, no, I don't want a sexual relationship with you. No, I only want to be friends. But the way that he's parsing this out and asking her about this doesn't present that way. And I certainly can clear it up on cross-exam, but the things that happened in 2021 and leading up to 2023 are as these witness stated. And I'll give you an example of a record that's created. He asked her, did you hang out with him on Christmas Eve? Did you hang out with him on Christmas Eve? And her testimony was, no, we had a Christmas party. And that is supported by these text messages. He wanted to be with her on Christmas Eve and she told him no. So if we just want to mark this as an exhibit so the court can and use it in its determination in this find over, but the idea of going like little by little through the text messages they're not really relevant to what happened on September of 2023, and it's a mischaracterization of the entire thread of text messages.
Response.
Your Honor, I have no objection to these text messages being received as an exhibit for purposes of this preliminary examination. What I was just doing now, when this objection was made, was trying to refresh the recollection of the witness as to the time period during which there was no communication between her and my client. And my hope was that by her seeing that in the text messages, and then that she reinitiated the communication, that might refresh her memory. But if the prosecutor wants all these text messages to come in as evidence, I'm happy to make that motion to move for their admission. I think they've been sufficiently authenticated. I think that they are fair game. They are prior statements by this particular witness. Some of them have been used to refresh recollection. Some of them have been used to impeach.
There's nothing to impeach her. She hasn't made an inconsistent statement.
We don't see it the same way.
Yeah, but what are you impeaching? Her recollection of events 2-3 years ago?
No, for that purpose, I've been refreshing the recollection. And it seems to me that this objection now is coming up specifically when I'm simply trying to refresh the recollection of the witness. It was not my intention at this point to introduce the actual text messages. She's answered questions about them. They're prior statements of her. They're relevant to the background, to the conversation. This is a consent case, Your Honor. And so this all goes to the defense of consent. And it all goes to the underlying nature of the prior existing relationship, which there was motion practice about, which the court has, and the people even conceded in their response to the motions, that it was going to be permissible for the defense to explore the nature of the relationship between the witness and the defendant. And that's all I'm trying to do.
How many pages of text messages are there?
80.
How many?
80.
80 pages.
So how many more of these text messages are we going through?
Are
they numbered at least?
Their number, their date and time stamp.
But the pages aren't numbered?
Unfortunately, no. I did not alter the I did not alter the way that I received them.
Yeah, but they could have had a page number on them so that at least the court can follow along because all right.
My objection to the March 2022, I don't know if she said she didn't, I'm just objecting to the relevance of the March 2022, the line of questioning and what she said in the text messages. If he can say, did you say this in the text message? And she can say yes. If she doesn't remember, he can refresh her recollection.
Your Honor, I expect that we're going to hear that after March 2023, after the complainant initiated the contact, that there are all kinds of text messages that suggest
Eric, I don't need to hear what I'm going to suggest to me what the heck I'm going to see. 80 pages. Somebody find a copy or get me a copy, get her a copy, you have a copy, and then everybody can go through it all night long, I guess. Court is staying in recess.
All rise.
I have a DD I can just put out there. I'm not sure if
I just need that exhibit.
All rise. The 14A District Court for County of State of Michigan is now back in session. The Honorable Judge Day said.
You may be seated. We're back on the record in the case of the People versus Raymond Smith. Counsel is present. Ma'am, if you could please come back up to. Is now seated, and I'd again remind you, you're under oath. Thank you. All right.
Your Honor, with respect to the text messages, I have hand numbered pages 1 through 3 on the packet of papers that the witness had. I've marked it as defendant's proposed exhibit number 1.
It would be defense exhibit A.
Okay. I have emailed to your staff a copy of this.
Yes, oh, I have it,
Okay.
but I don't have numbers on the pages. So.
And I apologize for that.
Okay.
I didn't have a way to
Let's
make a photocopy.
Let's get through it. All right.
So I'm going to approach with the witness with the court's permission.
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. England, there's now some page numbers at the bottom there.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you to look at page number 45, which is a series of text messages from December 7, 2022. 40, I'm sorry, I apologize, 47. My mistake. So page 47, it's a series of text messages, December 7, 2022. And then if you turn to page 46 at the very bottom, because they read from the bottom up, the next entry is March 23rd, 2023. Do you see that? So does that refresh your memory that there was really no communication via text message between you and Mr. Smith between December 7th and March 3rd, 2020?
It does not refresh my memory, but yes. I remember getting involved with my mom.
And you remember there being a period of time where there was no communication for the span of a handful of months?
Particularly?
You would agree with me that based on the review of the text messages that we've already gone through, which started way back in September of 2021, there was pretty consistent communication between September of 2021 and December of 2022. Is that fair to say? And do you recall that there was a break in time where there was no communication reinitiated?
I don't.
Okay. Do you remember reaching out to Mr. Smith on March 23rd, 2023, as indicated in the text message that appears on page 46?
I don't remember that, but I see the text messages.
You don't dispute you don't dispute that is in fact, are in fact your text messages with Mr. Smith, do you?
I can't say one way or another. I think they're.
Well, if we go all the way to page 1, that's your phone number at the top of page 1, 517-449-209, correct?
Yes. It's my phone.
Okay. So after March 2023, is it fair to say that you, between then and leading up to September 21st, 2023, there are a whole bunch of text messages between you and Mr. Smith, correct? And I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but I do want to cover different topics that you may have texted about. For example, you text back and forth about needing or wanting a ride from Mr. Smith to various places, correct?
Can you give me a page number?
How about page 46, which is March 24, 2023. Mr. Smith at the 4th line from the top.
Yes, I see that.
So you were going to need a ride, or your mom going to take you, and you said, would you mind? Meaning you were asking Mr. Smith, correct?
I see that.
So you asked him for a ride at that point, correct?
Sure.
And that wasn't the only time during this time period that you asked him for a ride, correct?
I just need a minute.
Sure. Maybe if I direct your attention to April 1st, 2023, on page 44, does that refresh your memory that you asked for a ride on that day?
I don't remember that, but I see it in the text message.
It says, you said, hey, so can you take me today at 2:30, please?
Yes, I see
So you asked him for a ride on April 1st as well, correct?
that. I think he'd asked me to come over to his house to a barbecue and I said no. So I do remember that day.
And you would also, as part of these rides, had talked about either paying him for the rides or cleaning his house in exchange for him giving you rides, correct?
Yes.
And you referred to a barbecue that you chatted back and forth with him about a barbecue on April 3rd, 2023, correct? Page 43.
Yes.
And in fact, you wish you could have gone to the barbecue. Is that what you said?
I said that. Yes.
So you're in the habit of saying things that you don't really mean.
I don't want to hurt someone's feelings who lives next door to me.
So you'll lie if it's convenient for you.
When I don't want to hurt someone who lives next door, yes.
If it serves your interest, you'll lie, won't you?
Sir. He lived next door. He was friends with my mother. I didn't want to make it weird and awkward.
Don't you think it was already weird and awkward?
Oh, yeah, a little bit, but I didn't want to make it worse.
You've lied to the police before, haven't you?
I'm sorry?
You've lied to the police before, haven't you?
I don't think I need to answer that question. I can plead the fifth, self-incrimination.
I'd ask that you direct her to answer the
I'm
question.
gonna object on relevancy grounds.
What's the relevance of that, counsel? Seriously,
That whether she's lied to the police before, her whole the very crux of this case is based on her credibility. And now we're exploring whether she's prepared to lie. And now she's been asked a flat out question.
You realize this is a preliminary examination. I can't decide credibility. That's gonna make it an issue of fact. It's gonna have to go to the jury. You do realize what proceeding you're in.
Your Honor, I am aware of the law that says the court must make a credibility determination in order to decide whether or not there is probable cause.
Objection as to relevance is sustained. Next question.
May I just ask for clarification of the court's ruling?
I think I'm real clear when I said sustained. No, you may not.
Thank you. Now, you also told Mr. Smith on April 3rd that you were glad that his barbecue went good. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Did you mean that?
Yes.
But you didn't mean that you wish he could have come.
Yes.
Yes, you did mean that you wish he could have came or gone to the barbecue or no?
I didn't mean
Okay.
that. Clarified that.
So just so we're clear, you will say things that you don't mean.
Um,
So is that a yes?
If it's to prevent an awkward situation, sure, yeah. If it's saying, yeah, I wish I could have gone to your barbecue, wish I could have gone to your birthday party, wish I could have gone to your bar mitzvah, yeah, I'll say it. But I'm not gonna lie about getting raped.
Your Honor, I think the door has just been opened to a matter that has been discussed via motion in this case. And I believe that the witness has just volunteered information. There was no question pending. And I think we need to take this up at sidebar.
What issue?
Your Honor, she previously had made a complaint against a man that turned out to be not prosecuted. And we had a whole back. and
Oh,
forth.
yes, and I reviewed it all in camera. It doesn't go to that issue,
Well,
counsel.
she just brought it up.
No, she.
No, she did not.
She most certainly did, where she said, I'm not going to lie about being raped. And it's been my contention from the very beginning that she lied previously about being raped. And now she says she's not lying about being raped. And she's
You
opened
can
the
stop
door.
right now. No sidebar. My previous ruling stands. She did not bring it up. I think you are very mistaken.
I respect the court's ruling.
I don't know. You don't sound like you respect it.
So what were the other arrangements that you had talked about with Mr. Smith about as far as payment for rides? There was nothing? Do you remember? Let's look at page 42. Tell me if I read these correctly, starting at the bottom of 42, starting at April 5th, 2023, at 10:33 in the morning and 18 seconds. You said, hey, I'm going to go back to sleep for a bit because my stomach is killing me, but I was wondering if you could give me a ride to work. Did I read that correctly? And then you said, please, I have to be there at 4, so we have to leave at 3:30 so I can at least get you some money because I feel bad. I'll help you clean too. Did I read that correctly? And then you said, please, Ray, correct?
Yes.
And then he says, you may have to call one of your boy toys for that. Did I read that correctly? You said, Ray, he said, serious. And then you said, seriously, LOLG. He says, you have 3 options. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
You say, I need your help though, for real, correct? You say, okay, let's hear it. He says, I already told you the three options. TOI, got to work off that ride debt dog. Did I read that correctly? You say, I'm going to give you money today and help you clean. Did I read that correctly? You said both. And then you said, so can you help? And he says, when are you cleaning or getting money? Did I read that correctly? And then a few lines farther up, April 5th, 2023, he says to you, I don't exist to serve you. You have put cleaning or payment or the other thing on the back burner. So it is what it is. Did I read that correctly?
That was what Ray wanted, and I told Ray that's never gonna happen. That was never an option.
There were
If you look at the
conversations,
text, it said-
and he says, or the other thing.
He says that.
And you had conversations with Mr. Smith about sex for rides, didn't you?
He said that.
You had conversation with him about that in the past, didn't you?
How dare you? No, I did not.
You also had conversations with him in the past about sex for money, correct?
No, I didn't.
You were using drugs heavily at that period in time, correct?
No, I wasn't.
Did you ever have the police come to revive you because you overdosed?
Sustained,
I don't care if she's the biggest.
sustained. Counsel, I'm just gonna say this. I don't mind giving some leeway as to your questioning, but your questioning has to have some basis. It's not just gonna be a free rein attacking somebody's credibility. I don't care who it is. You've got to have some basis for some of the questions that you're asking. If you're telling me that somehow and or another, that she is trading, I guess what you're saying is sex for money, where's your basis for that?
In the text messages you're on?
Where in the text messages? Point it out to me.
Page 34,
What's it start with? What's the date?
April 27, 2023.
Okay,
Says,
So
hey,
far-
why?
This might get worse, but so
Where?
far, I
Court
think
wants
this
me
is
to read
everyone
it.
doing their job.
where is it? At what time?
I understand where everybody is where they are.
4:03 and 41 seconds.
He's got a client to
4:03.
defend.
Hold on a second.
Judge has got to keep order. Things get contentious. I'm guessing it goes more off the rails than this, but this is just a hot hearing with ugly facts. So far.
April 27, 2023.
Yes, Your Honor, page 34.
Oh, remember, my copy doesn't. have
Yeah, I apologize. Where it says, hey, so my schedule is pretty clear next week.
Yes.
Workout and also,
Right.
that's one reference.
That's his reference. That's not her reference.
No, it is her, that's her sending it to him. Where it says received, that's received by my client's phone. That's her sending it.
And also,
Yes.
where is that meaning anything?
Your Honor, I have a context, obviously, from my understanding of the facts of the case.
Now, I'm just gonna be clear. Unless you have some clear indication that somebody is exchanging sex for money, not gonna have somebody come up on this stand, I don't care what kind of case it is, and you make that accusation and impugn somebody's character. If you're gonna do that, then you better have something other than some innuendo to back it up.
Page 18,
Time.
August 21st, 2023. 8:21 and 09 seconds.
August 21st, 2028, what?
8:21 and 09 seconds. And then 8:21, 53 seconds, 8:22, 19 seconds. Those are all about sex for money.
You're saying August 21st,
Yes. (2023),
8/21/07,
8:21:09.
8/21/09.
It says we still need to talk about rules and stuff.
You're saying August 21st,
Yes, sir.
2023,
Yes, sir.
8/21/07.
8:21:09 a.m.
Time again.
8:21:09 a.m. And then the next one is
Yeah. Then if you want to ask her about those before you make the accusations, then you need to do it.
sorry, I couldn't hear the.
You need to ask her about those. If you're saying those are her statements and that's what I mean, you're gonna have to ask her about them before you make that accusation.
Okay. Miss England, turning to page 34, April 27th, 2023. At 4:03 p.m. and 4:03 and 41 seconds. You texted to Mr. Smith, hey, so my schedule is pretty clear next week for workout and also with about 4 or 5 O's on the end of that. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that was referring to the possibility of rides for sex.
No, that was
Mhm.
talking about smoking marijuana.
Let's go now to page 18, August 21st, 23.
There.
Ray sent to you a text message at 8:21 and 09 seconds. We still need to talk about rules and stuff if you want to do what we were talking about. And you responded, I'm talking about one time for $100. And you also said, if there's stipulates, it's okay. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah.
There's a couple of typos in your typing, but that's what it says, correct?
Sure.
That was you discussing with Ray, sex for money, wasn't it?
It was discussing cleaning his house, $100, $15 an hour. Continue reading this text message. See that. That night, I went over to his house and he said some very derogatory, gross things to me. And that's when things kind of got weird between us.
And what were those derogatory things that you claim that he said?
I should wear a maid outfit while I clean his house.
And you still went and cleaned after that, didn't you?
I needed the money. I was in a very bad spot.
Your Honor, I do remember the prosecutor having said something the last time we were here about a personal event at 4:30.
Listen, I'm good. Let's just get this done.
Okay. On April 10th, you also have April 6th and April 10, you have communications with Ray about rides to various places, correct?
Can you repeat page number, please?
40. He would take you places like the doctor's office, fair to say?
He did was, I think,
Did he ever take you to do your drug testing?
so, no, I think that he took me to get a drug test or something. I don't know, I don't believe it was confirmation. I don't.
What else would you have been drug testing for? Now, on April 24th, you actually invited him over to your house, didn't you?
He often did, my mom often invited him over as well.
Does he have a dog named Oreo? So on April 24th, you invited him and Oreo to come over to your house, correct?
I'm trying to see.
Well, let me just ask you, do you remember inviting him and Oreo over at the end of April 2023?
Like I said.
Ever ask him to go for a walk?
Once.
Was that April 24th, 2023 as well?
I do not know exactly, but it looks like it.
And this is after the time period that you claim it started getting weird, but you're asking him to go for a walk?
Sir. It's on me.
Who you claim made inappropriate derogatory remarks to you, yet you're asking him for a ride, asking him to come over, asking him to go for a walk. Those are all true statements, things that you did.
Yes. I thought that was just his personality. He did that. He said inappropriate things in front of everyone. But
You would also sometimes text him heart emojis.
I do that also.
To people that you think it's weird with. You asked him, he gave you rides in May of 2023, fair to say? You said that you were in hard times in May of 2023. You actually wanted his returnables, his cans,
He
because,
wanted to give me his cans because he had bags and bags and bags and bags. He wanted to give me his cans.
well, on May 20th, 2023, you actually asked him if he has any empty cans that you can have, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
And you, because you needed the money, right?
fine. Well, it wasn't necessarily that I needed the money from the cans, but it's why not? He'd offered them to me. It's not like I was out there collecting cans.
Well, let's look at the text messages on May 20th. This is page 28, May 20th, 2023.
Gravy. Me getting.
Ma'am, wait, ma'am. I'll get to that. Wait for the question. Go ahead, Cal.
Thank you, Your Honor. So did you text him on May 20th, 2023 at 8:59 and 53 seconds? Question, do you still have all those empty cans? And his response was yes. And then you say, I'm willing to take them off your hands. Very poor at the moment from having COVID and not being able to work. That was the exchange that you had with him at that time, correct?
Sure.
And would you smoke marijuana?
I have no idea. I can't give you an answer to that.
Is it fair to say on a fairly frequent basis?
I wouldn't say. Once in a while.
So give me a ballpark of what once in a while is.
I don't know. Once in a while.
Is that like once a week, once a month, once a year?
He came over, he smoked marijuana with my mom and dad.
And then there were times that you would go over to his house and it would just be the two of you, correct?
Yeah.
And you're saying that the night of the events, that's why you went over there initially. That's your claim, correct?
So,
And this was not an unusual type of occurrence for the two of you, correct?
necessarily.
And yet you were going to do this even though things, as you say, had started to get weird. And you asked him for Coke in June of 2023.
Yes,
He didn't have any cocaine, did he?
not then.
Did you ever do cocaine with him?
No.
There's a pending PPO case related to these facts, aren't there?
Sorry.
You know what a personal protection order is?
Yes, I know what the personal protection order.
You actually filed for one
It's not
against,
pending.
You actually filed for one against Ray in the circuit court in Washtenaw County, correct? And there was one issue by Judge Slay, and it was just renewed not too long ago, correct? It was renewed. You have an attorney in that case, don't you? That attorney represents you and is paid by one of the people in the audience here. Isn't that correct?
Objection, relevance.
What is, oh, stop. What is the relevance of this?
Your Honor, it goes to motive. There's
A motive to do what?
to make false allegations against Mr. Smith because of the
Councilman,
dynamic.
we passed, hold on. You know, and I give council all the leeway in the world, or try to. Are we past you trying to call her a prostitute? Are we past the money for sex thing now that you have nothing to back it up with?
Your Honor,
Are we past it? Question mark. Are we past it? You don't want to answer me.
Your Honor, I would like.
You don't want to answer.
I do.
Counsel, you be very careful. I asked you a direct question. You do not wish to answer me. Is that correct?
I will answer the court.
Are we past it?
Yes.
Now, as to this issue, give me a proper as to what in the world that could be about. So what if somebody else is paying an attorney fee of hers that's sitting in the pews out there? Why do I care?
Court should care because it shows the totality of the circumstances surrounding the allegation.
What does that mean?
It means that there is an ongoing dispute at the condo complex, and there are two factions. Mr. Smith is in one faction, other people are in a different faction. The other people in the different faction have a vested interest in driving Mr. Smith out of that condo complex. Now they're laughing. So I was looking to
So go ahead.
So I was looking to try to explore with the witness what I believe is the reality of the situation, and that there are other motives at work behind the claim that this was a non-consensual sexual encounter.
I am trying to give every benefit of the doubt to that argument that I possibly can, but I cannot even begin to follow that. You're saying she got a PPO, which went through another judge, highly respected judge, Judge Slay, who issued it and then reissued it, so I'm to understand. And that behind all of that is that she did that so that she could drive the defendant out of the complex that they all live in.
Because for a portion of the time that the PPO was in existence, Mr. Smith was not allowed to go back to his residence. And there is a parallel PPO matter in other residents in the condo complex.
Against who?
Against the person that is paying for Miss England's private attorney in the PPO matter.
You have got to be kidding me.
I wish I was, Your Honor.
And what does that have to do with anything I have to rule on in this case?
It goes to motive and credibility, which I believe is always an issue.
So her motive for making the accusation is to drive him out, and that she's in cahoots with somebody else, whoever that is out there that's paying some attorney bill, in order to drive him out.
I think the court understands where I'm going, yes.
No, I don't. Well, let me rephrase that. I understand where you're going. I don't even know why we're going down that road. I have no clue whatsoever as to what I. Mr. Riser, you have risen. Is there something you want to say?
I was objecting to the questioning about who is representing her or why someone would represent a personal protection order. For the record, in Odyssey, the petition was filed October 10th of 2023. So I don't think.
October 10th of 2023, her petition was filed.
Correct, October 10th of 2023, and the date of offense for our case is September 20th, 2023.
Right. So that's why she made the whole thing up? To do that? So she made what you're putting forth to the court is that she made this complaint and then does a PPO for the sole purpose of supporting somebody else to drive him out of the complex?
That's part of the defense's position.
Oh, for Pete's sakes, counsel. Court's in recess.
State of Michigan is now, you know, they said it since it was died.
You may be seated. You're back on the record in the case of the people of the state of Michigan versus Raymond Smith. Counsel is present. The witness is now seated. And now for the third time, ma'am, I will tell you and remind you, you are still under oath. You may continue your question.
Thank you.
You had mentioned that at the time, shortly in the months leading up to the incident, you were having tough times or something to that effect. Explain what you mean by that.
Objection, no.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Yes, I was living with my mom, and I working a job that I used to enjoy.
Did you have debts to people in the community?
1%.
You a drug dealer? Now, whether you meant them or not, you would say some pretty nice things to Ray in the month leading up to September 20th. Is that fair to say?
Give me an example.
Page 21. August 20, 2023 at 11:47, 7 seconds PM. Yeah, you said, what's going on? Do you need / want to talk? I'm here for you. And then in all caps, always.
Is that kind?
So you said you were here.
So I understood, had some different,
You told
being human.
them you were always there for him, correct? I'm sorry. Yeah, but that's not my question. Isn't about humanity. You indicated to him that you're always there for him.
And you said that in the context of his dad dying? Okay. All right. That's what I'm going to explain anything else.
Now, you've told them that you love them, haven't you? And you told him that you loved him in the context of discussing with him in the month prior rules that there were going to be if the two of you would be touching each other.
You mean not touching? That text out loud?
Did you discuss with him
Exactly,
touching? Did you discuss with him touching?
not.
And the, ru-
I
and the,
discussed not touching. I said you are not allowed to touch me.
Did you
That's
say-
what I said.
did you say he could touch your hair?
I said you are not allowed to touch my hair. Please read the text again.
Did you say to him
Please
that you
read the
could,
text again.
Your Honor, can I get a responsive answer?
I think she's responding.
I am responding multiple times.
I'm not asking you about the text message.
You asked me.
I'm asking you, did you ever tell Ray Smith it was okay for him to touch your hair?
Absolutely not.
So if we go to the text message on page 19. And you say to him at the bottom,
Give me timing.
August 20, 2023, 11:54 and 21 seconds PM.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You actually mentioned, you used the word marriage with him, didn't you?
When was that?
Well, let's read the text. Tell me if I read it correctly. This is from you to him. Like letting me go, number 2, no touching unless it's hair. Did I read that part correct?
Yes, you did.
And then you write, no raising voices and please. Did I read that part correct?
So this is in.
Did I read that part correct?
Yes, you did.
And then you said, remember, I love you. Did I read that part correct? And if as ready for marriage in CODs
Kids,
right now, but I'm not.
because he repeatedly asked me to have children with him, as I stated in the police report. He said I was a 10 and he deserved a 10.
Told him you could touch your hair, didn't you?
I told him yes, that's what it says here. Kind of disgusting that he wants to touch my hair that much. Don't you think?
And right after that, the next day, is it still your testimony that this $100 for one time, that was all about cleaning? Just the same way that you just said, you never said he could touch your hair, now all of a sudden that changes?
4 years ago, I didn't, you know, the trauma he put me through, that you put me through. How am I supposed to remember that?
Do you have any idea what it's like to be falsely accused?
He's not.
You don't have to answer that.
I'll move on, Your Honor.
You should have never gone there.
On August 21st, you went over to his house, correct?
Correct.
What did you do?
I smoked marijuana.
And then you invited him that same evening to come over to your house, correct?
What?
You were uncomfortable, you were kind of creeped out, there were weird vibes outside, and you asked him to come over?
August 21st.
Yeah,
What are we looking at right now?
I'm asking you if you remember having that kind of communication.
I don't remember most of these conversations. They were 4 years ago.
Take a look at page 15 at the top.
What time are we talking?
August 21st, 2023, 10:17. You asked him to go over because you were creeped out.
Yeah, to stand outside.
You felt safe with him, didn't
No, I didn't. But it was, he was mad. Definitely. It was safe, but I trusted him to an extent. He was friends with my mom.
you? Not always friends with your mom, are you?
That's not your business.
Can I get an answer, Your Honor? Her answer is
What's
it's
the
not your
relevance?
business.
What is the relevancy of that?
Your Honor, with all due respect, the witness
No,
doesn't
that
get
means
to,
I'm about to get none. So what relevancy is it? Answer my question.
it goes to the dynamic of the entire situation, which that's what it goes to. And that why does she need him to come over? What role does Ray Smith play in her life? And I really object that the witness is now the one who's controlling the examination.
Don't even go there, counsel. Because I will shut you down in a minute. I've given you tons of leeway, but you will never, ever disrespect this court or this judge. So you better go outside right now and check yourself before you say anything like that to me again. Court's in recess.
All right. You see it? District Court for County of Washington, State of Michigan is now back in session. The Honorable Day Cedric Simpson presiding.
May be seated. Back on the record in the case of the People's State of Michigan versus Raymond Smith. Counsel is present, the witness is present. May I remind you, you're still under oath. Freeman, you may continue with your cross-examination, and now I will show you exactly how this court can run a preliminary examination since you think somebody else is in control. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss England, in the week or so leading up to September 20th, 2023, did you have a boyfriend?
Relevancy.
What is the relevance of that?
Your Honor, the witness had previously stated that she wasn't interested in Mr. Smith because she was involved in another relationship at different points in time. And I have reason to believe that she no longer was in a relationship when it came to September 20th, 2023. And that's what I'm trying to explore.
And I would object, Your Honor, it's not relevant if she had 6 boyfriends.
Objection sustained. No, I sustain the objection. Go ahead.
On September 18th, 2023, did you go over to Ray's house? Two days before.
Oh, maybe. Probably, more than likely, but I don't want to be wrong. We said September 18, yes.
What did you go over there for?
Probably just not very long.
And did you go around the 19th to clean? And then on the 20th of September, you indicated that you went over in order to smoke marijuana, correct? Was there any plan to have any other drugs? Did you want to take other drugs? But he didn't? Prior to going over to his house, what had you consumed that was mind altering? And I'm talking specifically on the 20th of September.
Specifically on the 20th of September. I don't. So it's long ago. I had so much has happened since then. I did the line of cocaine earlier in the day.
About what time?
I
And would the effects of that cocaine have worn off by the time you went over to Ray's? Had you taken any other mind altering substances that day? So at the time that you went over to Ray's, you were feeling okay, fair to say? You felt sober. And the marijuana that you smoked at Ray's, that was smoked, I think you said from a bong?
Yeah.
Were there any other, for lack of a better way, any other ways that you ingested it? Did you have any edibles? Did you smoke a joint? Was there anything else besides the bong? Did Ray ever act as like a peeping Tom?
Yes,
When was that?
I saw him by my window once.
And that's a second floor bedroom window? When was that supposedly?
When I was living with my mom, I can't give you an exact date.
It was well before the events of September 20th, though,
It
correct?
was before. It was before that.
But we're not talking like a day before, we're talking a long time. I would say.
Yes. After he was peeping. Say.
So before leaving Ray's house that evening, you gathered your clothes, correct?
Yes.
What did you put on?
I believe it was my pants, shirt, it's my pants and shirt.
So you got dressed.
As I was walking the steps, yeah, I had a sweater too, and I remember I did not have that on, I had it with me.
And when you say as you were walking down the steps, you were getting dressed, what steps are you talking about?
He has stairs leading out to his front door.
So were these stairs on the outside of the front door? Inside the front door?
Yeah, so his apartment is almost like a loft where you have to walk upstairs to get to.
And you had your cell phone with you?
I had my bag with me.
Was your phone in your bag?
Yes, I'm assuming because I didn't have to go back to get it.
And you had your phone with you in your bag as you walked from Ray's house to your mom's house?
Yes. I had my stuff with me. I was not in. I couldn't walk a straight line. I mean, I wasn't.
You were able to stop and smoke a cigarette though, correct?
I don't remember. I did, I did.
How long did it take you to gather up your clothes and get dressed and leave?
Asked me if I wanted to come or.
Did he say why he wanted to come?
Not that I remember. I don't really. I don't know. I don't remember. So much. There's so much. Like I get flashes. You know, in my memory, I get flashes of what happened. And
Okay, ma'am,
all the
ma'am, wait for a question. Next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you walk back to your mom's house, and what do you do when you get inside your mom's house?
I don't remember like exactly on
How long was it between the time you left Ray's house and the time that you went to bed?
I don't remember. Like if you're asking how long it was before I went to sleep.
Yes. Did you talk to anybody before you went to sleep?
So I didn't talk to my mom. She was sleeping in the wall.
Was there anybody else in the apartment or in the condo at that time? Your mom's condo besides your mom?
So
And you didn't, I'm sorry, you would have told them what happened.
now
And you had your phone, but you never called the police then, did you?
I just. No, I didn't.
What'd you do with your clothes?
I fell asleep. I took them off in the morning, clothes on, and but I think my sweater I hung up in the closet. Shirt I left out in bed, maybe, I don't know. And the pants,
When was the washer started?
Yes, for this type of case.
collected those pants before the washroom, so.
So when you were examined at the hospital, the nurse that was doing the exam, she was taking notes, correct?
Yes.
Think of why the nurse would put down on the report that you had no trauma to your bottom area, to your anus.
Objection to what the nurse's report dictates.
Sustained this to the form of the question.
You're claiming that when you were examined, you had trauma to your anus, that when you were examined at the hospital, that was readily apparent, correct?
I don't know if it was really apparent.
That would have been something you would have mentioned if it had happened?
I didn't mention it. She knew what happened. I have lots of.
Hold on. Yeah, answer the question. You've answered it.
Now, the next day, what time did you go to the hospital?
I don't know, I slept a really, really, really long time. I'm not sure. It was not, it might have been, it was in the late morning or the afternoon.
That you went to the hospital? Okay. And so Ray texted you at 8:53 in the morning about whether you wanted to come over to his house after work that day, correct?
Yes.
And you responded later that afternoon that you were not okay last night. You weren't able to say yes or no. You said, I was fucked up and only remember one little part. That's not okay. That's rape. That's what you said to him, correct? And he responded to you. You were saying you were fine and you seemed really alert. You consented. I asked multiple times if you are on drugs and you said no. That's what he said back to you, correct?
Yeah.
And you indicated that you would press charges if he didn't stay away from you, correct? And you said that to him at about 3:13 in the afternoon, correct?
Yes.
And then at 4:06, you asked him about a pair of earrings and a hair clip that you think you left at his house.
Yes.
This is after you said, stay away from me, stay out of my life, and now you're concerned about an earring and a hair clip, right?
Yes. But I
Okay.
told him to put it in my mailbox so that we didn't have to see. It was very, yeah, these are things that I can't.
So just so we're clear, after this man supposedly violently rapes you, you're concerned about your earrings and a hair clip, and you want those things back, correct?
In the moment, yes.
And you didn't call the police.
Yes, I did.
Oh, now you remember you did.
I went to the hospital and the police were called.
Did you personally call them?
Objection, yeah.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may I have a moment to confer with my client?
You may.
Thank you. Nothing else at this time.
Can you redirect?
Ma'am, counsel just asked you about that text exchange on September 21st after the sexual assault. Could you read your response into the record? I think he forgot some of that, just so the record's clear. Why'd you ask if I was on drugs?
Why did you ask if I was on drugs if I was acting fine? You know, I've literally turned you down for years. I didn't want to sleep with you ever, and I never will. You took advantage of me, and I want you to stay far away from me.
Far what? I'm sorry.
Far, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
away from me. I will press charges if you don't. End of story. Your number is now blocked.
Did you ever communicate with him after this? After you were looking for your earrings and your hair clip?
That's it.
Okay. Did you block his number?
Yes.
Okay. And that wasn't the first time that you told him that you only wanted to be friends.
Correct.
Could you look on page 67? On June 14th of 2022.
22. June 14th, 2022.
Yes. Did you tell him, I always thought we were just friends? Page 67.
I see. What time?
10:19 PM.
Yes, I always thought we were just friends, and I'm so sorry if I gave you the impression otherwise. I just got out of a very serious relationship, right?
And earlier that night in the text communication on page would be 68, June 14th at 8:44 PM. Did you tell him, I would like for us just to be friends?
Yes. I would like for us to be friends. I'd like to be able to trust you, because from what I can tell, you are a good person. I just really need my mom right now, and she isn't available. I'm so selfish and hurtful, I've been like this every time I've been going through something difficult. Please know I like you, and none of this is about you, okay?
In the beginning, when you first met him in September of 2021, I want you to look at September 23rd, page 78. The text message at 10:56 AM. And this is in the context of that Mexican restaurant that you talked about on September 16th on page 79. I like the Mexican food, the restaurant. Isn't it true, ma'am? You never went to dinner with them? You never went to lunch? Okay. And then on September 23rd, do you tell him happy birthday? Better if we just are friends?
Yes.
Okay, can you read that into the message you sent him on September 23rd of 2021?
Um, Is it the one where I say hi? Thank you for the birthday?
Yes.
Yes, hi, thank you for the birthday wish. Sorry, I'm just now getting back to you. I really respect you and think you are an awesome person. But I'm still living with Chad. I just don't need or want any complications right now. I would love to talk to you more, but I think it'd be better if we did it as friends. I hope that's okay, and I hope you know it has nothing to do with you, because you truly are amazing.
Did you ever want to be anything more than friends with him?
Never.
In September of 2022, page 61. Is the message on September 15th, 2022 from the defendant offering to give you a ride if you need drive you places, or just hit me up?
Yes,
And what did you tell him?
I just need a friend.
Your dad was dying?
Yeah, I said, I just need a friend. My dad is, excuse my language, fucking dying. My ex literally stole all my friends. I just need a friend without feeling like they want more. Please. I'd like to come over without feeling like you were going to come on to me.
And what did that mean? You didn't want him hitting on you? And what did you tell him on page 60, September 15th, 2022 at 11:21 PM? After he tells you, well, again, you can choose to come over whenever you want. What is your response?
So it's cut off, but I can see it says as long as you don't try anything, don't touch me. So,
And did you tell him September 16th, 2022 on the same page at 11:20 AM, no dating?
yes. I am not talking about dating, I'm talking about just hanging out, like I hang out with plenty of females that I don't have sex with.
That's what he said to you.
That's what I said.
So you never wanted a sexual relationship with him?
Never.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Anything else?
But in August of 2023, a month before, August 20th, 2023, you said that no touching unless it's hair, right?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, it's been asked and answered.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I believe that because of what's just been brought up on redirect, I should be allowed to go into some questioning that the court ruled on initially. That was, I wanted to ask some questions about text messages on page 8, where she references that she's no longer with a boyfriend. And those are from September 16, 4 days prior to the alleged assault.
And so what does that have to do with anything?
Well, it seems that what the prosecutor has done is gone back to these moments years prior where the witness has said, I'm in a relationship. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Now, 4 days before the events, she makes it clear to my client that the boyfriend is out of her life. I think it arguably shows potentially a very significant paradigm shift. And I think that for purposes that the record needs.
How is there a shift? Because on September 21st, she makes it very clear when she said, you know, I've literally turned you down for years. I didn't want to sleep with you ever and never will.
Buyer's remorse.
Seriously. You know what, counsel, I'm gonna let you go ahead and ask your question.
Miss England, on September 16th, 2023, at 2:37 PM, on the bottom of page 8, did you indicate to Ray that your boyfriend was out of your life at that point?
Yeah.
Nothing else, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Ryder?
No.
I just offer that defendant's exhibit A. I don't know if the court actually admitted it or not, but I wanted to.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit A is admitted. I think I'm gonna need your copy, ma'am, because mine does not have page numbers. Right. Thank you. You may step down.
Oh.
Yeah, you're all done.
Thank you.
I know, it's been a long day. Go ahead.
The people would call Jennifer a cover, that word. WOR.
And please come forward and be sworn.
See, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. See, state spell your first and last name for the record.
Jennifer Covering, AENNIFERCEDD.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you tell the court where it is that you're?
And how long have you been employed there?
7.5 years.
And what are your duties there? Okay. And did you receive special training to become a sexual assault nurse examiner? And can you briefly tell the court what that was?
I did 1 week left. 3 hours of training. And I sat for the national certification.
Okay. And how many sexual assault nurse examinations have you completed? Okay. And can you tell the court what a sexual assault nurse examination is briefly?
Survivor comes into the hospital, I take documentation so that I can treat medically. Any injuries. Anything I find.
Okay.
According to what she working tells me.
Okay.
Gonna need you to speak up if you could. All right, no, it's okay.
And in your role as a sexual assault nurse examiner, did you conduct a medical exam on the patient Jessie England on or about September 21st, 2023? And how, if you know, did Miss England come into the hospital? If you recall.
ER, in a room in the ER when I got there. I'm not sure how she arrived.
Okay, and I guess that was kind of like not a very articulate question. How, like, are you in the hospital when she gets there? Do you get paged or something else?
Right, run call, so we get paged.
Okay, so the patient comes in, and in this case, Miss England came in, and then you got paged to the hospital.
Correct.
Okay, and when you arrived, where was the patient, Jessie England?
ER.
Okay, and do you meet with her in the ER room or somewhere else?
Typically, we take them to, we have a dedicated sexual assault room. Where she was getting IV antibiotics, so we just did the exam.
In the ER room. Okay, and who's present during that exam?
It was just her and I.
Okay, no one else is in the room. Okay, and how does the exam start? Do you get history on the patient or?
History. Like what happened, and then I go from that, how I treat.
Okay, and in this case, what did Miss England tell you had happened? If you recall.
Your Honor,
And did she tell you these things for purposes of medical treatment, how you're going to treat her?
Correct.
Okay, and I believe that these statements are admissible for purposes of medical treatment.
Remove the objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Would it refresh your recollection to see a report?
It was.
Okay. I hand this. What was the history? You took a history of the assault to treat her medically, and what was that history?
So she had told me that, gave me a brief like synopsis of how she knew him. What had encountered prior to her that she could remember before she was blacking out. She would wake up periodically and he was on top of her.
Okay, and what else did she tell you about the assault?
She woke up that he was having sex with her. Had her describe all that and she said it's
Okay, and did she talk about smoking weed?
She did.
Okay.
He wanted her to do that. But yeah, he did.
And do you know what time assault occurred?
It had happened the night before. Yeah,
On what date?
9:20.
Okay. And what time were you conducting your examination?
9:21. I first met her at 10:30 PM.
And do you go through, so that's the medical history. And do you go through the acts described by the patient?
I do. This is very good question. She would answer yes, no, or no. Protected. A lot of what she didn't remember.
Did she recall restraint or force?
She did. Sit down her wrist.
Okay. And penetrations?
Penis, digital, and a porn out of it. She described as sexual.
And with that information, then is that the basis for your physical exam?
Correct.
Okay. And did you note any trauma on her head or neck? And any trauma on her physical assessment, body map? And any trauma to her vaginal area? And let me ask what type of examination you're doing of this area? A pelvic exam? And what trauma or injury did you note?
1 centimeter, 1 year, pain and redness to the 6 o'clock area.
And how would you describe what you saw?
It was 1 centimeter line, probably a skin tear.
A skin tear? Okay. And did you note any trauma on her anal exam? And was she prescribed medication?
I gave them the brandy. She was given antibiotics and the
Okay. And you'd also swabbed some of her areas? Okay. And you do that based on the description of the assault? Okay. And what swabs in this case did you take?
the anal, the vulvar, the vaginal cervical area, and then I did her left cheek.
Okay. And any photographs taken? Okay. And what about toxicology? And why not?
24 hours.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the answer.
It had been over 24 hours. Medications like that, we were just really-
I think you said something about it would probably be gone. Is that what I heard?
And do you then package those swabs into a kit
I do.
and do what with it?
I feel it and turn it over to the boy.
And were the police called by the hospital or were they present at the hospital, if you know?
They were called for everything.
Okay. And I know you see a lot of patients, but do you remember her demeanor when you treated her? if you noted that.
She was very flat, had very flat affect, she was in pain. Her hand was swollen. And her vagina hurt.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions, ma'am. The defense attorney may have questions for you.
Cross-examination.
What are the subject areas that you receive special training?
Initial training, doing assault practice. I shadowed 5 or 10 exams initially on to several training.
And what are the kinds of things that they cover in these trainings? I mean, you already have a nursing degree, correct? Is that a BSN? So you have 4 years of college and you got a nursing degree. Are you a registered nurse as well? Do you have any postgraduate training?
Just sexual assault exams.
Okay, so you've had very, very specific training after becoming a nurse to become a sexual assault nurse examiner, correct? So what are the specific subject areas that you're trained on?
It goes over treating specific injuries, sexual assault exams. You learn the like chain of command for evidence. Information.
Any specific psychological training?
I work full-time as a nurse in mental health, so I think.
Okay, so how long have you been a nurse? So how long have you been a sexual assault nurse examiner? So before September 21st, 2023, how many years did you spend in the mental health arena of nursing? And you're obviously familiar with the idea that not everybody comes in and tells doctors and the nurses the truth, correct?
It's not up to me to determine whether or not they're telling the truth.
That's none of your job on September 21st had anything to do with making an assessment of whether the person was being truthful or untruthful, correct? Your only job is to collect evidence and to make sure that medically they're attended to, correct? The purpose of collecting the evidence is because you know at some point later on down the road, it's going to be used in court, correct? And you're, as an experienced sexual assault nurse examiner, you know that everything about that person that's in front of you that you're examining, everything about that's going to be dissected by people like me, defense lawyers, correct? And it's going to be examined very closely if a case goes to trial by a jury, correct? So you want to be as thorough and accurate as you possibly can be, correct?
Correct.
And so this particular person, Miss England, came to you and said, I was sexually assaulted, correct? And she admitted to you to consuming some mind-altering substances, correct? Had you spent any time reviewing her chart before you went in and did the exam? So you have, let me just be crystal clear. So how long would she have spent in the emergency department before you came in?
I don't typically know those things. Usually when I get them, they're discharged from the ER.
Okay. So you did learn, she indicated to you that she had lupus, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever inquire about any other types of medical conditions that she had?
Just from what she told me.
S- I said, the matter, did you ever ask her about, for example, her substance abuse history?
It just asks for, current medication.
Did you ever ask her about her substance abuse history? Did you ever ask her about any histories of surgeries?
Yeah.
And under general medical history, you wrote down that she said that she had lupus, correct? Is that all she volunteered to you about her history? Did you ever ask any probing questions about her use of narcotics? It didn't occur to you to do that, even though she was claiming that she was blacking out? You didn't see anything or hear anything in your examination that led you to want to ask those kinds of questions, did you?
No.
You didn't have any concerns about that, did you?
I mean, she was blacking out. Smoking weed.
Now, you have access to physicians, correct?
Correct.
And you could have asked a doctor to order a toxicology screen, correct? You don't know.
But I don't see the hospital records being treated medically by the staff in the ER.
So it's not relevant for your purposes, even though somebody says that they're blacking out, it's not relevant for your purposes to find out what drugs, if any, are in their system.
Right.
And in reality, you didn't have any concerns that there was something in her system at that time, did you?
I wouldn't say that. He admitted to smoking weed and blacking out.
But you're not, your job isn't to determine whether she's telling the truth or not, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
I'll move on. Do you remember who called the police?
In the ER,
Well, if you know, how is it that the police came to be involved?
triaged her at the hospital, what it's called, police.
Is that a medical person or is that
Yeah.
that's a medical person?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever meet her mom? So when you first walked into her and encountered her, you said it was like in a regular emergency room, treatment room, I guess, I'm assuming. Was there anybody else with her? Okay. And what's the difference between the designated sane exam room and the regular ER room?
I don't work for the ER. So, as you know, the ERs are busy, so if they're not being treated medically, they don't need to be in a room. In the ER room,
Well, is there something special about the sane exam room?
yes, it's not in the ER.
It's in a different spot in the hospital?
Correct.
And so why didn't you do the exam there?
She's getting IV antibiotics and she wasn't discharged from.
Do you know what the IV antibiotics were for?
No,
How did you know they were IV antibiotics?
the nurse who's taking care of her when I got there told me.
So did the nurse that was taking care of her, did she sort of give you a status of this is what's going on with the patient that you're going to be examining?
Yeah, she just said that it would be a while before she was discharged.
Did that nurse share anything with you about anything to do with prior drug use?
Not that I remember.
Miss England never indicated to you that she consumed anything other than marijuana. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
You know what the injury to the hand was caused by?
Not that I had written down.
So may have had nothing, there's nothing that, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I could try to remember, but I'm not going to do that, so.
Okay. And you did your exam at 9 o'clock in the evening, correct?
I believe I read that I first made contact with her at 10:30.
10:30 at night or in the, okay.
All right, it's a hot one, people. We're doing well overall.
So you asked
First
her
and
a series of questions,
Mods are doing the
or you
best.
elicited a series of information related to the actual sex act itself, correct?
Correct.
And so she told you that and there's 4 columns that you can check off, right?
Correct.
Yes, no, unknown, or attempted, correct?
Correct.
What is, when you check off unknown, what does that mean? What gets an unknown checkbox?
That's what they tell me. They're not sure.
They're not sure. Okay. So when it came to whether there was fondling, she said, I'm not sure. Correct?
Correct.
And you checked off unknown, right?
Correct.
And then licking, kissing, or suction, she told you that that was attempted, correct? Is that right?
Correct.
And as far as any biting, she said, no, he never bit me, correct? And with restraint or force, she said yes, that he held her down by the wrists. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now that in and of itself doesn't mean that it's not consensual, does it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
She indicated there was no attempt to strangle. Is that correct? She did indicate that there was penis, digital, and foreign object use to penetrate the vaginal area. Is that fair to say? And she specifically indicated a sex toy was used. Now, when it comes specifically to any anal penetration, she told you she wasn't sure that whether there was any anal penetration or not, correct?
Correct.
She told you, and to be very specific, she said, I wasn't sure if there was any penis, digital, or foreign object anal penetration, correct?
Correct.
And you actually performed a visual exam of her rectum and anus, correct? Including a swab, right?
Correct.
You didn't see any trauma or damage to the tissues in that area of her body, did you?
Correct.
And she was unsure of whether there was she was unsure of whether she had any oral contact with his genitals, correct?
Correct.
And unsure of whether he had any oral contact with her genitals.
Correct.
And the same thing with respect to any oral contact to the anal area in either direction, correct? She was unsure of whether any lubricant was used or a condom was used, correct? She indicated to you, though, that her clothing was removed during the assault, correct?
Correct.
Did she say who took the clothing off? Did you ask? But she did indicate to you that she was missing an earring and a hair clip, correct?
Correct.
So she remembered about the earring. We keep going. She was unsure whether there was any injury to the alleged attacker. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, based on your experience, if there was, and you indicated specifically that there was no trauma to the anus or rectum, correct?
Visualizing the outside,
I'm sorry?
seeing the outside.
Okay.
Area.
But as far as you could see, there was no trauma to the anus, no trauma to the rectum. Give a moment to confer with my client, please. Nothing else, Your Honor. Thank you.
You redirect, Ms. Rose.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, I don't want anybody mad at anybody. This is an ugly hearing. I get it. People are going to have strong opinions. I have no opinion, none whatsoever. I'm going to keep it that way.
On the record in the case of Raymond
Hell out of there.
Smith, people versus Raymond Smith. Counsel is present, may have.
Amy Reiser on behalf of the people.
You solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. So state, spell your first and last name for the record, please.
First name Marco, Marco, last name Campagini, Campagini.
Well, I totally had that wrong. Thank you. Can you tell the court where you are employed and in what capacity? And how long have you been employed there?
Approximately 4 months, or excuse me, 4 years and a few months.
Okay. And did you have police experience prior to coming to Washtenaw County? And where was that at?
United States Navy.
Okay. How long were you in the Navy?
4 years.
4 years. I want to take you back to September 21st, 2023. Were you working in your capacity as a deputy on that date? And were you dispatched to St. Joseph Mercy Hospital in Ann Arbor? And what was the nature of the dispatch?
When we received the dispatch call, it was sexual conduct.
And who, if anyone, and so you received that on the 21st, 2023. And who, if anyone, did you meet with when you arrived at the hospital?
Dispatch advised that the caller victim was going to be in a consult room at the location and make contact with Jesse, and I believe her mother was as well.
Okay. And was that prior to the adult nurse examination or after, if you know? Okay. And did you remain there for the exam? Okay. Did you take initial information from her? Okay. And did you determine from interviewing her when the sexual assault had occurred?
Yes, so she stated it was the day prior.
So September 20th, 2023. And what was the venue?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the hearsay. Which hearsay? He's referring to she stated.
You know what? He's gonna try to establish venue. That's okay, because I've got her testimony and the court can take judicial notice that the address that she described is in Ypsilanti Township, so we don't play these games. Go ahead.
Based on your encounter with Jesse England, what did you do next? How about that?
After my initial encounter with her, I looked her statement information. I then was escorted back to her residence, which she was living with her mother. I then collected some work clothing in the residence.
From the mother took you back there? Okay. She was living with her mom at the time? Okay. And what was, do you remember Jesse England's demeanor when you met with her in the hospital? What was her demeanor? And did you observe any injury on or about her body?
Yes, I noticed that I don't recall which hand, but one hand seems more swollen than the other, and then there was a small bruise.
And did you photograph these injuries?
Yes, I believe there's also she's claimed there's puncture marks on her arm somewhere. I did photograph those.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 1 through 4. Let me approach.
Yes, you may.
And can you identify those exhibits by their number and describe what's in the photograph?
Yes, so exhibit number 1 is a picture of Jesse England's neck on the left front side. There's some status there. Exhibit number 2, it appears that the back of Miss England's right arm, possible bruise, looks like it's above one of the holes, about an inch. Exhibit number 3 is a picture of her hands, palms facing down. It does appear that the left hand has some redness, some red marks, possible redness on her left wrist on the right side. The right hand is the one that's swollen. And then people exhibit number 4 is a picture of England's wrists, palms upward. I observed there's some old scars, but nothing.
And are those a fair and accurate representation of how she appeared when you had contact with her at the hospital on September 21st?
Yes, I took these, I would say roughly around 10 minutes after my initial contact with her.
Okay. I would move for the admission of exhibits 1 through 4.
Any objection or voir dire?
Yes, Roger. Officer, as you sit here today, you don't know when the marks that are depicted in those photographs, how they came to be on Miss England's body, do you? I'm not asking you to tell us what
I'm
she's,
just trying to be very clear.
I'm not asking you what anybody told you, okay? As you sit here, excluding what you may have been told by other people, because that's hearsay, you don't know how or when those marks were and how or when they ended up on her body, do you?
I can make assessments off of my experience, but you'd be correct. I do not know.
Your Honor, I object to their admission. There's absolutely no basis in the record at this point that those injuries are relevant to this particular case. If the prosecutor wanted to introduce those photographs, I think they needed to come in through the witness whose body was photographed. There's absolutely nothing in this record that suggests that those injuries or the marks or anything had anything to do with any interaction with my client.
Your objection goes to weight, not admissibility, counsel. I think you should know that. I don't need a response. Objections overruled. Exhibits 1 through 4 are admitted.
You collected Miss England's clothes from her mother's residence,
I collected a piece of clothing.
a piece of clothing. Did you also draft a search warrant for the defendant's residence? And would that be 1614 Wingate Boulevard, Ypsilanti, Michigan?
Yes.
Is that in Washtenaw County? Okay. And you had that search warrant approved by a magistrate or a judge?
Yes.
And when did you execute that?
The exact time, I don't recall. It was a long day. I believe it was the day after, or I would say second, you know.
So you had contact with Miss England at the hospital on Thursday, September 21st, 2023,
Correct.
approximately 10 PM or what time?
I think I remember correctly, it was around 6 to 7 PM is when we were dispatched.
Then you meet with her, get the item of clothing, draft a search warrant. That's executed at the defendant's residence the next morning.
That night, within the 3 hours of the morning.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you locate at that residence relative to this investigation?
During our search warrant, searching the residence, condoms were recovered, different types of sex toys were recovered. I believe there was a dildo or two, vibrator, lubricant, some clothing, a rag, if I recall correctly, and then bed sheets.
Okay. Any, well, they wouldn't be controlled substances, but anything like marijuana or the like?
Yeah, so we went to the residence, and there was bong with marijuana that was burnt in the bong, and then there was a grinder with marijuana in it, and the packaged marijuana before it was recommended.
Any other illicit substances?
I do believe there was shrooms that was photographed that was in the safe.
And the defendant, Raymond Smith, you see him in the courtroom today? And could you tell the court where he's seated and what he's wearing?
Yeah, he's seated, the defense attorney, he's wearing a dark blue collar button shirt.
Okay. Pretty big guy. Did you indicate in your report his height and weight? And what is that?
I'd have to look at my report and get it.
Would it refresh your recollection? Thank you. Thank you. I don't have any other questions for you.
Cross-examination.
You know who called 911?
I do that, sir.
Actually, do we even know if it was a 911 call or was it a call into like non-emergency number?
That I don't know, sir.
The quantity of mushrooms, well, let me back up. You have experience in dealing with cases where people are selling drugs. There's nothing to indicate that Ray Smith had quantities of sale of mushrooms, was there? Nothing indicative that he was just selling marijuana either, correct? How long did you spend speaking with, interacting with Jesse England when you first got to the hospital?
I would say roughly 20 minutes.
And did you ever, were you with anybody, by the way?
As in.
Did you have a partner?
Yes, I had
A recruit, okay. Anybody else?
when I initially talked with Miss England.
Yeah.
That's her mother and my partner out there else.
Okay. Did you ever speak to Miss England alone without her mom present?
Not that I recall.
Sir, were you the person that actually presented this matter to the prosecutor's office for purposes of a complaint? Are you the officer in charge? Did you?
Yes.
Okay, so you put together a packet of materials and submitted it to the prosecutor's office, correct? Did anybody from law enforcement other than you speak to Miss England prior to the issuance of the complaint?
Before my partner and I made contact with Miss England, you're asking if anyone from law enforcement had spoken with him?
Well, that's not what I was asking, but I like your question better than my question. So
If you would like to consider dispatch, if a phone call is made to her, then you can dispatch.
okay. So if you heard the testimony today that she doesn't remember whether she called 911, correct? And you heard the testimony of the nurse that she thought it was a medical person that would have called the police, correct?
Correct.
So for sake of our questioning now, I'm going to ask you to assume that Jesse England did not call the police. So prior to you arriving, to your knowledge, nobody from law enforcement spoke to Jesse England, correct?
Correct.
After you spent about 20 minutes with her at the hospital, but before the case was submitted to the prosecutor's office, did anyone from law enforcement speak to her?
In between me leaving the hospital,
And you presenting the case to the prosecutor?
my knowledge, no. It was, we collected a statement from her. Then we advised her of the situation. I then left with my recruit to Miss England's house, collected the evidence, we're looking first, drafted the search warrant, executed the search warrant.
No detective got involved in this matter, correct? So we're here based on your essentially 20-minute conversation with Jesse England. That's it. Did you ask her any questions about her history of drug use? You knew about her history, correct?
At the time.
You didn't at the time? You have to answer out loud.
Oh, sorry.
You never responded to that address before that date?
Me,
How about other officers?
Objection, relevancy?
Relevancy and
Well, I'll ask you.
side of his scope, so I'll sustain the objection.
So you were unaware of any history of drug use that she had?
Objection, asked and answered.
while you were at the hospital?
But later, when I went to go collect or have a partner collect the CSC kit, usually we have contact, they just walk us over there and make sure it's us that's collecting the evidence and take custody.
Right, but I guess I'm talking about, did you or any other officers that you're aware of have any conversations about the substance of the case with any medical people? You described what you saw were puncture marks on her arm.
Yes,
What were those from?
I don't know.
Did they look like drug marks, tracks?
One could say yes.
Well, you in fact said something to her about these look like they're self-inflicted.
I don't recall if I ever said that.
You were wearing a body camera, correct?
Yeah, if I have to report her body cam video, help me refresh.
Okay. Now, did Ray Smith tell you where any of the items were inside of the residence when you first arrived there?
I don't recall the timeline, but I do know that, or I can tell you that he did tell me where some items were located at some point during the search.
And he specifically during the search warrant indicated where there were condoms that he had used when he had had sex with Jesse England the night before, correct?
Yes,
And you saw those condoms, correct?
the unused ones,
No, the used ones.
no, I did not. He advised that the used condoms he already thrown out
In the dumpster?
in the trash, and you just trash out the dumpster.
I don't suppose you went to the dumpster to look, did you? Okay. I think you testified that you recovered a bong, is that right? And that's sort of a device that's used to smoke marijuana, correct?
Yes.
And there was marijuana in it?
Yes.
Okay. Did you then submit that to the lab?
Yes.
And you actually submitted it to the lab with the concern that maybe some other substance besides marijuana had been involved that prior evening, correct? Why did you have that concern?
Due to Ms. England's statement of blacking out.
And she actually took it a step further and said that she thought she had been drugged, correct?
I don't recall those exact words, but
That was your concern
yes.
based on your conversation with her. And other than the bong coming back positive for marijuana, there were no other mind-altering substances that came back as a result of the lab tests that were done on the bong. Isn't that right? You have absolutely no indication whatsoever that this case involved anything other than the consumption of marijuana, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. That calls for speculation.
Sustained.
She told you something else must have been administered to her, correct? No evidence of that in this case, is there?
Correct.
She also told you that she avoided Ray Smith like the plague, didn't she?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Did she express a dislike for Mr. Smith?
Objection, hearsay.
I think you can answer that question.
Did she ever express a dislike for Mr. Smith? And you heard all the testimony today about all the times that they spent together, correct?
Objection to the characterization of the question. Like, that can be some kind of argument for jury.
Sustained.
That's
If
not-
you're making a motion to strike, it's stricken.
May I have a moment to confer with Mr. Smith?
Mayor, we need to redirect. All right, sir, thank you very much. You may step down.
The people have no further witnesses.
Any witnesses for the defense?
No, Your Honor.
People have a motion.
We do, Your Honor. The people would move for bind over on counts 1 and 2 in the felony information. I do believe that the testimony of the victim does support a probable cause finding that the defendant did engage in sexual penetration with Jesse England, causing personal injury. A person he knew or should had reason to know was mentally incapacitated and or physically helpless in this case because of the consumption of marijuana. And that he also did engage in sexual penetration with Jesse England, causing personal injury to the victim and using force or coercion to accomplish a sexual penetration. I believe that her testimony does support a probable cause finding to both counts 1 and 2. And I would ask for the lesser included offense of criminal sexual conduct, 3rd degree by force or coercion without injury, be added as count 3. And criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree physically helpless without the personal injury be added as an alternative count, believing that the jury may find that the injury is not sufficient. And so count 3 would be criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree by force or coercion. The PAT code for that is 750.520 D1B. It's a
520 D1.
D1B.
Thank you.
As by force or coercion, and criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree physically helpless is 750.52 D1C. That's also a felony punished up to 15 years in prison. And I
You
would
meant to say 520 D1.
520 D1C.
Okay, you left out the zero there. Gotcha. Okay.
So I would move for bind over on counts 1 through 4. 2 counts of criminal sexual conduct in the 1st degree alternative theories, and a count of criminal sexual conduct, force or coercion in the 3rd degree, physically helpless in the 3rd degree.
Well,
My turn.
yeah,
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'm not going to lecture the court on the law, but my understanding of the law is that this court does have to make an assessment of whether there is credible evidence to support a probable cause. I think one of the two of the most telling falsehoods that came forward that should cause this court to have a big question mark as to the credibility of this witness across the board is that she testified on direct examination that there was damage to her rectum and anus as a result of this alleged sexual assault. We heard from the scene nurse that there was absolutely none. We also heard from the police officer witness that she expressed disdain or displeasure, dislike. I don't remember exactly how I put it with the witness, but that she didn't like Ray Smith. And there was painstaking evidence introduced through these text messages and the questioning that she was fond of Mr. Smith.
but you're talking about before and after this day, counsel. Those are two separate things.
I'm talking about the fact that she's lied. Just plain and simple, Judge. She lied. And that this is undoubtedly a he said, she said kind of case. But the prosecutor has to jump over the hurdle of there being some credible evidence of a sexual assault. And there just isn't. Not from this witness, not with the baggage that she carries, not with her demeanor on the witness stand. She couldn't answer a straightforward yes or no question from the very beginning of my cross-examination. She was combative and hostile. And that tone of voice and the demeanor that she displayed in this courtroom doesn't show up on a bland black and white transcript, but the record needs to reflect her evasiveness. And I apologize to the court for my frustration. My frustration wasn't with the court, it was with her, that she couldn't answer a question yes or no with a simple yes or no. And she would start volunteering stuff. That is the hallmark, Your Honor, of a witness who cannot be believed. And Mr. Smith's life is riding on this. He's patiently waited for more than a year to have this stay in court. It's just not there to the level of probable cause. And I appreciate the difficult position that the court's in, and I see a lot of judges in my experience that as soon as the complainant says something that meets out the elements, they automatically say it's a question of fact and it gets bound over. But I know that this court wants to get it right. And I know that this court doesn't want to continue to put Mr. Smith through the ringer based on the lack of evidence, lack of quality evidence. And that's what we have here. And we also had the testimony of the officer that Miss England made statements to him that caused him to be concerned that there were other drugs involved. And there is zero evidence of that. That's another huge falsehood. It's another blatant lie. And to continue down the road for Mr. Smith, where he has to literally fight for his life based on the word of that witness and a police investigation that was literally 20 minutes. Yeah, they went and got a search warrant. The search warrant actually helps my client. There's nothing in the bong other than THC. There's nothing in the clothes that make any difference. Literally, it's a 20-minute investigation. And my client's charged with a life offense. I'd ask that you not bind it over. I don't believe that there's enough here to provide credible evidence to support a probable cause finding.
Mr. Rice, is there anything else?
I do briefly, I'm sorry, I can't help myself, do need to respond to that. I do understand that this will be a transcript, not an audio or video recording, but it's as almost as listening to Brother Counsel's argument, we were sitting in a different courtroom, that her demeanor was combative or hostile. I mean, Your Honor, you're the one that had the opportunity to sit and listen to her. I found nothing about her demeanor combative and hostile. She was not evasive. What I do believe is that her testimony provides probable cause that a crime was committed and that this defendant committed it. And you certainly do make determinations regarding credible witnesses and whether they're telling the truth or not. But her testimony appeared to be genuine. It comported with the defense exhibit that I did not object to having admitted. She told this defendant in no uncertain terms that she did not want a romantic relationship with him. She did not want sex with him ever. And in the court, because I know the entire exhibit is not read into the transcript, but when you read 80 pages of that, that is this defendant just going after her, constantly come over, baiting her with marijuana. And yeah, 100%, she's admitted a drug user, and he exploited every minute of that. And it's insulting to listen to Mr. Freeman argue before you that because she's some kind of drug addict, she can get sexually assaulted, and that's okay. It's not okay. I think her testimony is sufficient. When we get the case before a jury, consent is an issue for the trier of fact. And these text messages aren't gonna be just admitted. He doesn't get to admit his own, client's statement. So the client's gonna have to testify that it was consensual, because what she testified to is she was blacked out, physically helpless, and when she did come to, she said no, and that's force or coercion. And when we get to trial to prove this charge, it is not necessary that there be evidence other than the testimony of the victim if that proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So we certainly have it, but even at the beyond a reasonable doubt standard, we can rely on the testimony of the victim alone. So we would ask that you bind the matter over on counts 1 through 4.
Court's gonna stand in brief recess. I'll come back in 10 minutes to be made decision.
Yeah.
You may be seated. The or approximately beginning at 2:00, and certainly listen to the argument of counsel regarding a bind over in this case, but specifically regarding the testimony of Miss England. You know, it's kind of interesting because certainly the court can look at credibility, but the court can't judge credibility at this point in time. From the standpoint of making that final determination, that's left to a fact finder, a jury, if that's what it is. But to the extent there needs to be a finding as to the credibility regarding Miss England. As I watched Miss England on the stand, this court would find specifically that she is exceedingly credible in terms of what she says and in terms of what she says that happened. At times, admittedly, she was, I think, not necessarily combative, but was trying to do her best to tell the truth and make sure that her answers were clear. To the extent one may have perceived some hostility, I guess when you're called a prostitute and that you were selling your body and all of those things, I guess I can't blame her that her initial response would be one of hostility. But when I look at her testimony, it was never shaken. There were certain conclusions that were trying to be drawn with the text messages regarding her testimony, but she gave an explanation, and not just some fanciful explanation. She gave her explanation regarding that. But also, while I find her credible, and I'll get into some of the factual determinations, is what she did immediately after it happened, which is basically the sequence of she gets home. At some point, she sleeps whatever is in her or whatever off, talks to her mother. They go to the hospital. Doesn't sound like buyer's remorse at all. Typically, with most buyer's remorse cases, you have something that then leads the person to then do it. For example, I think, quite frankly, defendant's argument was undercut by the fact that she wasn't in a relationship. If one were going to say it's buyer's remorse, because there's nobody necessarily to find out about. But then specifically what she says, and it's in defendant's exhibit A, starting on page 1. In the middle portion of that, where the defendant sends a message saying, hey, do you want to come over after work today? And I think it's important to lay all of this out, because this really goes fundamentally to her credibility as to what happened. She types back, Ray, I was not okay last night. Not able to say yay or no. I was fucked up and only remember one little part. That's not okay. That is rape. Her first response to him on the 21st, she is telling him that he raped her. His response then back in this exhibit is that saying you were saying you were fine and you seemed really alert. Then tries to put in those magical words where he says you consented. I asked you multiple times if you were on drugs and you said no. But I'll say this, Miss England is no dummy. Because then as she responds back, minutes later, she asks the ultimate question. Why'd you ask if I was on drugs if I was acting fine? She's right. There wouldn't have been a need to even ask that question. She goes on to say, and throughout her entire, I'll go on in a moment, but throughout her entire examination, defense keeps trying to push her into basically saying that she was somehow attracted to the defendant and somehow wanted a relationship and was trying to use parts of these text messages and things that she may have said as an indication that that's what she was doing. And then try to, in closing, her statement that she doesn't want anything to do with the defendant or detest the defendant, don't have the actual words, but basically say she doesn't want anything to do with the defendant. Saying that to the officer and then saying that to the nurse, that's all after the fact. But tries to conflate it into something where to say that she's lying. At that moment, she certainly is not lying. But I think in her text message that day, continuing on, she sums it up regarding the relationship that she didn't want to have with this defendant, where she says, you know, I literally turned you down for years. That text message, before she even said it, was consistent with her direct testimony that he wanted to have a relationship with her and she didn't want it. But she says it right here in the text, the day after. Then says, I didn't want to sleep with you ever and never will. You took advantage of me and I want you to stay far the fuck away from me. I will press charges if you don't. End of story. Your number is now blocked. What I thought interesting from the defense perspective is all of that in a lot of ways is skipped over because she wants some of her property back. Quite frankly, that's not unusual in cases like this. The fact that she asked for a hair clip and some other things, in a lot of ways, so what? She lays out exactly how she feels. She lays out specifically what she believes happened. And it did not, the text message sent close to the time, the day after, is consistent with her testimony today. In terms of what she said, it's consistent with her statement to the police. It's consistent with her statement to the nurse. She didn't waver at all. One of the things that's interesting, though, is that what she says, and in terms of looking at this case for what it is, because what the defense wants the court to believe or say is that somehow or another the absence of things makes something not to have occurred. So I've said, I believe her testimony. I believe that she is credible. I believe what happened that night to the extent she can relate it. It happened. I think that it was absolutely unwanted. I think it was forceful on her, and a violation of her person. But one of the things that also leads me to believe in terms of the predatory nature of what happened, while there may be no evidence of any other chemical there, this court doesn't leave behind in terms of finding its experiences and its common sense in terms of reconciling facts. She said something very interesting at the beginning of her testimony, and the nurse repeated. And that is that when she was asked to come over, and she comes over, that the bowl on the bong was packed already. And that she smoked, he didn't. And then next thing you know, she is in this state of being in and out of consciousness. I think he knew exactly what was going to happen. I think he knew exactly what he wanted to have happen. And he did. I'm not going to go through everything because when, saying that I should think that she's a liar because of the issue regarding the anal penetration. She stated what she said, but she clearly is unclear as to everything that happened, and she made that abundantly clear. But she knows that something happened to her. And she said during one of the portions that she's trying to explain it, which also is consistent with trauma. It's coming back to her in pieces. Made absolutely perfect sense to this court as she was trying to do that. She freely admitted she could have tried to say that any injury or surgery that she might have to have regarding her prolapses was solely because of him, but she freely admitted that there was some injury or something there, and that she believes that something else happened. The bruising, she described her being held down by her wrist and things. Certainly, counsel can go ahead and argue the weight of that, but I think that the injuries that are on her, as a court indicated, are admissible. And I think that it also shows what she went through. For somebody that it's going to be in some way buyer's remorse, she's got to be the best witness regarding buyer's remorse I've ever seen, because she had to plan out a whole lot of things before they even got before this court, got before the police, or to that nurse. I, in my 25 years, haven't seen anybody that good if that's what they're trying to do. I sat here and watched her today basically be called a prostitute, basically be called the one that is chasing him in some way, sort of teasing him and trying to lure him in, but then not giving him maybe what the objective there. I watched her go through that today and basically be called everything in the world. And I guess that's the way one wants to do it. They can do that. But kudos to Miss England. She held her own. And she just said what she had to say. She spoke her truth. This court believes her truth. And for those reasons, the court is going to find that the people have indeed taken all of the facts and evidence.
She spoke her truth.
That was testified to. The court is going to find that the people have sustained their burden
Sweet
the
Jesus.
court will bind the defendant over on the stated counts 1 and 2,
And Simpson.
as well as the 2 added counts of CSC 3 requested by the people, as will be contained in counts 3, that CSC 3 being force or coercion, and then CSC 3 count 4 that being a helpless individual.
Thank you, Your Honor. With the court's permission, if there's no objection, I will file information prior to the pre.
Any objection to that?
No,
You waive its reading.
yes, my client will stand mute for purposes of arraignment.
Brendan Hemingway reading, standing mute as to all 4 counts. Court will enter a not guilty plea. Pretrial in this matter will be set.
December 23rd at 1:30 PM.
Merry
Judge
Christmas.
Slay, Monday.
December 23rd, 2024, 1:30, Slay Monday. Are there any issues regarding bond? Because the court has some concerns.
Your Honor.
Slay Monday.
Your Honor, before I address bond, may I ask one issue with respect to who the case is going to be sent to? I think this is primarily for purposes of the record point. But Judge Slay has been privy to ex parte information because she is the judge that issued the PPO in this matter. So at some point,
Why would that be ex parte?
because the PPO was issued ex parte. There's not been a formal hearing. It was issued ex parte initially in October.
But everything she would know has been disclosed.
I don't
If
know.
you believe, counsel, that that requires disqualification of Judge Slay, have at it.
And
And I'm going to tell you, I think you're wrong. I think
Okay.
you're very wrong. But if you want to do that, you can do it if you want. But I'm not even entertaining it, so you might as well just stop.
okay, that's fair. I wanted to ask the court about something with respect to my client's bond. I don't know if the court's willing to entertain a request.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, my client has been out on bond since the inception of the case. The PPO was modified. First of all, there's been no bond violations whatsoever. The PPO was modified to allow my client to be able to reside at his residence where he conducts work. My client has not been able to travel to see family at all during the course of the past year. So my request is simply that my client be permitted to travel out of the state of Michigan for purposes of being able to visit his family in the state of West Virginia over the holidays. He's gainfully employed. He owns his own business. And that's my request that he travel.
Any response from the people? I will just note that, quite frankly, before you respond, given the testimony that I've heard, I'm surprised that the defendant is out on bond and a bond this low, given what I've heard, because initially requested at arraignment was a $250,000 cash surety bond. And somebody saw fit, and I'm sure they didn't know everything that was heard today, but saw fit to release him on a $25,000 bond. Go ahead.
And I do have safety concerns for the victim now. The defendant lives in the same residence where her mother lives. I believe that she moved. And now that she has testified, and I do have safety concerns for her. I don't think a $25,000 bond in a capital case was an appropriate bond to begin with. So I certainly don't believe it's appropriate for him to be traveling out of state. I believe he's convicted. He's in a mandatory prison cell. So we would ask that the bond be increased. And I don't even know how to convey this on the record, but he's brought like the neighbors and the neighborhood with him, like I feel like as an intimidation tactic against this victim. And so we would ask for a higher cash bond.
Your Honor, there's nothing that's changed about my
Mr. Allen.
risk of flight, given the nature of the case and the nature of the proceedings. These are still merely allegations. He's certainly entitled to his day in court. To raise the bond at this point doesn't, I don't see the logic behind raising his bond at this point to address any increased flight risk or increased danger to the community. The fact of the
Oh, I think there's a huge difference in what one perceives as his danger to the community. Because my feeling, and I don't have to, when I look at this, when I listen to the testimony of Miss England, see what happened to her, hear what are these things sort of put up there saying she's this kind of person, she's this or that. I think that as far as his going after Miss England, he preyed on her. And I'm not sure what he did, but I think he did something to her and then raped her. I don't think any of that was necessarily known, certainly not to this court, prior to me hearing the testimony here. And like I said, I find her testimony extremely credible. I also know that at the point, whenever you're dealing in circumstances like this, once a survivor has testified, that is the dangerous point. And where his residence is too close a proximity to where her mother is. She's tried to get herself out of there, but I don't think she should have to. I'll let you finish, but just so that it's clear as to how the court sees it, so you can respond to that.
Your Honor, the complaining witness does not live there any longer. That's been established. The mom has been on friendly terms with Mr. Smith for years. He would render medical attention to her and be a good neighbor and help her out when she was in need of that kind of neighborly help. The reality is that Mr. Smith conducts he has a real estate business. He is a sole business person. He has friend support. The idea that he can't bring people here to be of moral support to him, I don't think that rings
That
out.
he can't do what?
He's got people in the audience here, and the prosecutor seemed to think that was by virtue of some sort of intimidation tactic. The complainant had people here on her behalf to support her. He's under the watchful eye of not only the criminal court, but also there's been a PPO in place. He has everything to lose by violating bond, and it's been more than a year. And so I guess the question for the court is more money necessary to account for any risk or risk of flight or danger to the community? And he's already posted a very substantial bond. He's made every single court appearance, every single one. He's a gainfully employed member of the community. He contests the validity of the allegations. I do fully expect if the case goes to trial, which it seems like that's where it's heading, he's going to testify. And he's been on the phone with me on numerous occasions in just utter tears over what he understands to be false allegations. I don't want to try the case here in front of this court. I guess I would like the court to zero back in on, is he an additional risk of flight? Is he an additional danger to the community, so that the court needs to do something to alter his bond? And I think it's sufficient the way it is now. In every court appearance, he's not acted out in any way, shape, or form. No indication that he will. He's been very, very compliant and cooperative with me. I understand the court's concern, but I'd ask that you err on the side of Mr. Smith. And I know the court recognizes that these are allegations, and that is all that they are. And I think that a quick trial date, if we don't have any pretrial motions, is probably where we're going to be headed with all of this. But to force him to have to address these charges from the inside at this point, I just don't think it's not necessary. I think you have sufficient controls in place.
Well, as I've said, given the testimony in the case, I don't think so. I think that the court is at least at this point now aware of an increased danger that this defendant poses to the community and particularly, I think, to Miss England. So the court is going to increase the defendant's bond. I will not increase it to the level that the people originally requested. However, I'm going to set his bond at $100,000 cash as surety. He's already posted 25 of that. Defendant, and that the defendant is to be placed on the GPS tether prior to any release if that bond is posted. Defendant remand. For just location tracking at this point. You get those back up. I think I've got them in here somewhere. The pack codes, I've got them
Yes,
up
I
here. You wrote them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. I did not expect that. I did not expect that. That was a wild one. I did not know what I was getting into at all. I'm watching that. But I can see finding probable cause. Although I could see not finding probable cause as well. But I could see finding probable cause that I can get behind. Raising the bond, I think, was an emotional reaction to not liking the attorney. And the soft soaping he gave the victim here, the alleged victim, and she may very well be a victim. I really don't know what happened there. I don't have a clear sense, but that's I guess my whole point. Fine, let's have a trial. I'm not convinced one way or the other based upon this hearing as to what really happened there. This vouching for her credibility, now it's fine, it's his ruling, but it makes you look silly. She got on the stand and admitted lying. She lied to the nurse because she didn't want to say that she was doing drugs. That's not the end of the world. We all understand that. We all understand why she did it, but it stands for the proposition that she will say what benefits her at the time. A lot of people will. You could look at that and say, yeah, okay, she had points where I believed her and points where I didn't. On balance, I find her credible enough. I find probable cause. But he's like, oh, no, this happened, everything exactly the way she said it. Well, the way she said it, she was blacked out. Then she admits lying on the stand. You could still find probable cause if you want to. That I don't think is a crazy finding at all. I probably would reluctantly. I would not raise his bond. And let the jury sort it out. I have serious doubts that they get a conviction on this. And you get this in the comments. Oh, you're not on her side. I'm not on any side. I don't know either of these people. I'm calling it the way I see it. These are ugly hearings. Everybody's got a big stake in this thing. She's talking about having her body violated. That's horrible. He's talking about being put in prison and having his life destroyed by a conviction based upon something. That's horrible. The stakes are high. Everyone's got consequences. It's not like the nice thing just to do is to just believe one side because that's politically what you're supposed to do right now. Oh my God! Speaking of which, when he dropped she told her truth. That's so freaking embarrassing. I still like Simpson. I do, and we all say dumb things. I say dumb things every day, but that was just categorically stupid. It's a dumb phrase in the first place. It's a phrase that belies it's a lie in the first place. When you tell your truth, that means it varies from the truth, which means it's a freaking lie. It's a dumb phrase invented to justify lies. I'm not saying everything this woman said was a lie. It's not. She was, and she is not, and he's like, oh, she's acting like he called her prostitute. First of all, he didn't call her prostitute. Did he imply that she's got questionable moral character? Yeah, he sure as hell did. Does she? From her own testimony, yes. She's lying to medical staff. She's using her femininity to get advantages. I mean, it's very common. I understand that, but that's what this stuff is. Does she deserve to have that happen to her? No. And we need to get to the bottom of that. That doesn't make it okay. The fact that she's not always credible doesn't mean that bad things should happen to her. The fact that she did drugs doesn't mean that she should have an unrelated bad act happen to her. Not even close. But it does go to whether or not it did happen, or if she has some ulterior motive, or if she's telling the truth in the first place, or if the event happened at all. It does. I wasn't going to say anything about it, but there, I couldn't take it. I just lost at the end with Simpson. Whatever. He's a good judge. He's a good guy. I was disappointed in him right there. He's just sitting there. Oh, she's like so perfect. No, she's not. That guy's doing a bunch of sleazy stuff. No one's up there saying, I'm not saying, oh, he's the, and by the way, I'm not on his side. I'm just looking at it. She testified. She said, I lied to the nurse. I told her I didn't do any drugs. That's just the cleanest one. There are other examples in there. She's flirting with him in text. She's asking him if she can come over and get his frickin' bottles. Come on. While she's in a relationship with another guy. Yes, I question some of her motives. I really do. But I don't have a problem with finding probable cause. Fine, set it over. It should probably go to trial. I haven't seen all of it. There's a lot more evidence or whatever. But this notion that she's somehow a saint or whatever, I'm going to be the big savior. No, that's not your job. Your job is to review the evidence. He did. He saw it. That's the way he saw it. I'm just not as convinced as him. Maybe he's seen more that I haven't. But that's where we are. Yay. All right. Sorry, and it gets now people are gonna be all mad at me because if you don't say everything they want you to say, whatever. That's the way I see it. Here's a preemptive cram at all your pearl clutchers. I don't have to just swallow anything that anybody tells me. I don't, and I'm not going to. Do I think it's possible that he's guilty? Absolutely. I also think it's possible that he's innocent from what I've seen so far. That's the truth. That's the truth, man. Thank y'all for coming out. I'll see y'all soon. Let's get back to some fun ones. I'm sorry. And if people and don't get upset, I think I timed somebody out too because they were whatever. Whatever. It's hot. I didn't kick anybody out. Just overall, I think everyone behaved well. Although I'm not seeing it. That's what mods are there for. I'm not seeing it. I get like messages around there. I'm like, I didn't see. So whatever. We're trying to get by. We handle it like adults. Most of it was good, and then you get, of course, you get the occasional someone get kicked out because the chat's moving, and I've done that one too. I've bounced the wrong person. I think I bounced Mindy. She's about the nicest person in the world because somebody else is being a total jackass. Whatever. That's the way I see it. Good night. I'll see y'all soon.